Do you have any more questions?
We are
Okay.
now live.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Santa Rosa City School Board special board meeting for February 17th, 2021. And we will start, as we usually do, with the Pledge of Allegiance together. Thank you. Please stand. Join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of
of
the
the
United
States of America
and to
the republic for which it stands,
one
one nation, under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
and justice for all.
Nice, Lori.
I apologize for that, but I'm getting better.
That's
But
awesome.
super apologize. There were no actions taken in closed session, and we're open now for public comment. And given the length of our meeting tonight, again, we are going to be asking folks to keep your comments to 2 minutes. And these are only comments on agenda items only tonight. Public comment on agenda items only tonight. So if it's not on the agenda tonight, we're not going to be listening. You can't say public comment about that. We will have another meeting next Wednesday when we have a regular school board meeting. So moderator, would you open that up, please?
Sure. And President Fong, just to be clear, this is public comment on any of the D items at this time, correct?
Any of the D items.
Okay, so if you would like to comment on any of the items, the discussion action items that are on the agenda, but comment on agenda items only, please raise your hand by clicking raise hand on your screen. And it looks like our first comment will be Micah Carlin Goldberg. Micah, would you please state what item you will be commenting on before you give your comment? And we have a 2-minute limit. Thanks.
I'm going to be commenting on D6, the search for a new superintendent.
Thank you, Micah.
Thank you for having me here tonight. Some of you were not on the board when we had our last salary negotiation, so I wanted to give a little history. In the spring of 2019, Santa Rosa City Schools and Santa Rosa Teachers Association settled a contract that gave us raises of 3% in 2020 and 4% this year in 2021. Then shortly after we ratified that agreement, the board under President Jen Close turned around and offered the superintendent a 29% raise retroactive to the beginning of the year that we were currently in which the teachers got a 1.5% raise. You may have heard about it. It kind of made the news and ended up having to be pulled back. I am deeply concerned because the compensation comparisons that are attached to agenda item D6 are enormous. Back in 2019, when we were looking at the raise for Superintendent Kitamura, the average, excuse me, the average was like $120,000 less than what your average is for the total compensation on the 7 school districts, which are all completely different from the ones you used for the last salary increase. The school district currently spends about 55.04% of its outgo on classroom teachers, which is 0.04% above the state mandated minimum. We're looking at eliminating teaching positions next year, which is going to increase class sizes instead of reduce them. I would hope that the board would make sure that we are not looking to increase the superintendent's salary over what it already is right now, which is above the state average. We need to be, several of the board members in this meeting said that they would bring teachers to the regional average, which is like a 14 or 15% increase. I don't know how we can do that and increase the superintendent's salary. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jonathan Markow. Would you please state your item for the record?
Yes, item D6 as well.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Moko. I am a teacher at Santa Rosa High, a community member, and a parent. And I'm also just going to kind of piggyback on some of the things that Micah had just said. I was deeply concerned when I saw this list of potential comparables. There doesn't seem to be a rhyme or a reason. The comparables that were used to justify the superintendent's raise just 2 years ago were at least focused in the North Bay, and these seem to be kind of all over the place and have schools of all different sizes, from 2,800 students all the way up to 21,000 students, and it just doesn't seem to align. The average pay, the average salary, and I'm speaking direct salary, not total compensation, for superintendents in the state right now is $196,650. So our superintendent pay is already above state average and is the only pay in the district above state average. For districts that have student populations between 9,000 and 20,000, excuse me, 192,645 is the average pay. So we already have a superintendent that is above state average and above comparable districts in size. And meanwhile, our salary as teachers is 10% below the state average. It is nearly impossible to teach students as an idea that we believe in equitable outcomes when we are not seeing that happening within our district. The wealth gap is growing between management and labor. CSEA is being left even further behind. Please do reconsider a comparable list before making a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is the last call for public comment on any of the items on this special board meeting agenda. Last call, please raise your hand right now. And President Fong, there are no hands raised.
Thank you to our commenters. Thank you. We're moving on to D1 as an action item. It's the bid and contract approval for Lewis Education Center Preschool.
Thank you, President Fong. I'm Assistant Superintendent Missouri. Do you have people that you need to bring over into?
We do. Adina's probably working on that as we speak.
Okay. And so before Assistant Superintendent Missouri begins, I just want to remind the board that preschool has been something that we've talked about for many years. In particular, the lack of available preschool spots. At one point, it was estimated at 1,500 slots that are needed in order to meet the need of preschool. The other thing that I remind the board about is that the younger, the better. If we can get our preschool students in sooner, it's just that much better for everyone. The thing that I love most about this whole project is inclusion. To be able to bring our preschool students all together on a site is just, and we're talking 100, over 100 little ones at a site. It's just a beautiful thing. And so with that, I turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Missouri and our guests here who are going to speak as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kitamura, President Fong and board. Thank you, Dr. Kitamura, for making my presentation. Can I get a motion?
Sorry.
Pretty much summed up, I think, what we're doing here. So let me introduce my team, and then I'll be sharing screen here. So make sure this works for everybody. And I'm going to minimize and go to big screen, big mode. So President Fong, members of the board, and Dr. Kitamura, I want to thank you for allowing us the time. And we are very excited about coming to you, and we've come to you again. This time, I think we've come to you with a program that we hope you will see is necessary for our community, not just our school. With me tonight, Janelle Plack, our preschool program manager. Ms. Plack is a longtime program manager in special education. I'll let her introduce her team in a moment. She's a proud Panther parent and somebody that's very near and dear to us in this program. Lisa Grocott will be presenting. She's one of our Head Start directors and currently operates or oversees 4 of our programs. And then Mr. Mike Graff, Director of Facilities, will come on and talk a little bit about the specific project. With that, Ms. Plack, Can I allow you to introduce your team?
We also have Robert Johns, who is the school psychologist in our preschool program, and Leslie Grimaldi, who is our special education inclusion teacher in the preschool program. This is just an overview, kind of our agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about what early childhood education is, talk about the proposal, review the bidding process and the construction timelines, and then we'll take questions from anybody at the end. So first off, what is early childhood education? And it covers children 0 to 5 years old. Actually, sometimes it goes even further and goes up to 8 years old, but we'll focus on 0 to 5 today. We have our 0 to 3-year-old children who are infants and toddlers served in early start programs. And there are a variety of different early start programs at the SELPA level. Head Start, as you see here, has an early start program. Regional Center provides early start programming, and we actually in our district serve 0 to 3-year-olds in our early start DHH program. And then there are the 3 to 5-year-olds who are our preschoolers, and 5-year-olds who move on to transitional kindergarten or kindergarten. There are a number of preschool programs available to preschoolers throughout Sonoma County. As you can see here, we've got Head Start throughout the county, 4 programs on Santa Rosa City Schools campuses. North Bay Children's Center, one of our partners, located on 2 of our Santa Rosa City Schools campuses. Community Child Care Council, that's 4Cs, located on campuses and other facilities throughout Sonoma County. And then of course there's private preschools, in-home childcare, and a variety of other ways that preschoolers are served across the county. I'm going to pass it over to Lisa Grocott from CAP Sonoma and Head Start. And she's going to talk a little bit about Head Start programming.
Thank you. Thank you very much on behalf of myself and Dr. Susan Cooper, to President Fong and the directors of the board, to be able to present this to you. Head Start and Early Start, as you know, we provide comprehensive services to children and families through meals, screenings, mental health consultation, high-level child outcomes support, family support for goal setting, and a really strong emphasis on parent education and parent advocacy. You know, Head Start uses the whole family or 2-generation approach, which aligns well with the mission of our grantee agency, Community Action Partnership. We do provide the high quality early education to children birth to 5. In addition, we have a prenatal program in which we are able to serve pregnant moms. And of course, our mission of both the agency and Head Start is to provide targeted supports to those families to move them from poverty to self-sufficiency. By funder guidelines, we do serve families living at 130% or below the federal poverty guidelines. And we have eligibility through income or categorical that include children in the foster care system, homeless children, and children with special needs. And we are required to fill 10% of our enrollment slots with children with special needs. We typically go way above that, and are excited to partner with Santa Rosa City Schools on the same campus to build this beautiful inclusion program.
This slide here just tells you a little bit about our early childhood education programs in existence in Santa Rosa City Schools. As I mentioned earlier, we have our Early Start DHH program that serves our little ones, and the services are provided in the students' homes and at our Lewis campus already. We have our preschool speech and language clinic for our 3 to 5-year-olds who receive speech and language services only, or perhaps some additional motor services, and those programs are located over at the Lewis campus. We have our preschool special day classes located at Steel Lane Elementary School, and we have now had our preschool inclusion program that's been running for the last 2 years with our current partners, North Bay Children's Center located at Steel Lane and Monroe Elementary. And in all of these programs, we serve students with a variety of needs, students with autism, speech and language impairments, orthopedic impairments, visual impairments, and many, many other areas of eligibility. Our school psychologist, Robert Johns, is going to walk you through a little bit about the importance of early intervention and how we serve our students.
Thank you. So we actually first meet our students in their home with their families at about 2.5 years old. We make sure to talk about the students' strengths and weaknesses and help parents start preparing for the transition from early start to preschool. So it's our job to work with these families for the next few months to make sure there is a seamless transition of services. We form a multidisciplinary assessment team, so that may be a psychologist, speech therapist, teacher, or others. And we do our home visits and clinic assessments to best inform program placement. So education code for preschool is a little unique compared to K-12. So in addition to the other requirements that are in the K-12, we are also required to reduce potential impact of a disability, produce substantial gains in all developmental domains. We must reduce family stress by connecting them with outside services and providing family counseling and training. And one of the things that I find most important, we must reduce the need for special class placement in kindergarten and institutionalization after high school. So to meet these requirements, we've worked hard to develop a comprehensive program using evidence-based practices. For example, here, you can see we're teaching students what's called a picture exchange communication system for those students who are not able to verbally communicate. We also follow the UNC Teach model, which includes guidelines for structured activities, specialized classroom layouts, and schedules. Our teachers also love to do community-based instruction, or CBI. We do a lot of walking trips to our local parks, and here you can actually see us. It's about a couple years ago. Our students made some Valentines and were able to walk to the post office and mail them home to their families. We like to teach functional skills. That includes riding public transportation. So you can see us on a trip using the city bus. We actually took the SMART train. That was my first time going. I had a lot of fun. And we like to visit places in the community such as museums, restaurants, and local shops. Of course, we make sure we are engaging in comprehensive developmental skill building, such as motor skills with an OT or APE teacher, work on academic self-help like toileting and feeding, and daily living skills with our teacher. And we make sure that we have developmentally appropriate activities to foster positive social emotional development in our students. We talked a little bit about inclusion before, but we highly value access to general education to the maximum extent possible. So here you can see our students participating, for example, in Steel Lane special events such as Field Day on the left, our garden with Big Buddies, as well as the campus-wide costume parade that happens every year. And finally, one of the things I'm most proud of, we are trying really hard to work on incorporating more family nights into our program so that we can provide trainings, answer questions, and just overall build stronger relationships. So we like to make sure the whole family is included, parents, sibling, grandparents, etc. A good portion of our students will be with us until the age of 22. So when you think about it, that's almost 20 years the family will be working with our district, which really makes it important for us to start building those positive family relationships now.
Thank you, Robert. And now Leslie Grimaldi, our preschool inclusion teacher, is going to share a little bit of information about inclusion.
Thank you. So this is just a little policy statement on inclusion in early childhood programs. So just to let everyone know that all young children with exceptional needs should have access to an inclusive, high quality early care and education programs where they are able to learn alongside children who do not have exceptional needs and are provided with individualized and appropriate supports. So that's just something that we really work really hard on, and it's been an incredible experience. So early learning and inclusive education. So we provide preschoolers with special needs access to general education preschool program, allows for placement in the least restrictive environment, allows our students with special needs to have access to their general education peers and general education preschool curriculum, supports greater cognitive, social, and communication development, and provides a sense of belonging to children and their families, which is very, very important, and also provides most cost-effective services. And this is my second year in this program, and I'm just working with North Bay Children's Center, and it's been an exceptional experience. There's great communication between both programs. The teachers that we're working with are very collaborative and inclusive and very creative. The experience for our families and our kids has been phenomenal, and it's been amazing for their social development, behavioral, and academics. And the last thing I just wanted to share was just a little quote from one of our lead teachers, and she's actually listening right now at the board meeting. And it just says, "It has been such a heartwarming and rewarding experience watching our Gen Ed preschoolers be so accepting and inclusive of our full inclusion and mainstreaming children. Every child who has entered into our program has quickly become part of our MBCC family. It's been an unexplainable feeling being able to watch these children blossom and push forward into kindergarten. Full inclusion in preschool is essential in creating more well-rounded and accepting individuals for the future. Having the opportunity to support and make a difference in these children's lives has been invaluable. I look forward to working with all of the children who enter into our program into the future." So I just kind of wanted to share that from Katie Peterson, our MBCC teacher from Steel Lane. Thank you.
And I would be remiss, everybody, and Dr. Kitamura, you alluded to it. Leslie, thank you, Leslie. You mentioned it, but in terms of investment, this is a quick sample of some of the investment reward for dollars earned, and the highest rate of dollar investment, and depending on what surveys you're looking at, it's a $1 to $7 up to $1 to $12 when you talk about students with intensive needs. So the money we spend early, and we all know that, the money we spend early saves us money in the long term. And although everyone presenting tonight is talking about the programmatic and the human value of what there is a dollar value to this that I would be remiss if I did not bring it up.
All right, so that brings us to the Lewis School campus. And here is an old-timey photo of Lewis back in the day. It first opened in 1860 at Franklin Street and Lewis Road, and then later had to move to its current location on Lomitas Avenue and Lewis Road. It closed several years ago with the opening of the larger campuses nearby, Steel Lane and Hidden Valley Elementary Schools. And it's been used for a variety of things over the years. Our next slide, though, is a map of how it is currently being used. We have district programs down in the lower left corner there. We have our preschool speech and language clinic. We have our early start DHH program. We have our motor clinic that's delineated there with OT, occupational therapy, and APE is there as well.
Sorry.
That's okay. CCS, California Children's Services, has their occupational therapy and physical therapy medical unit on the campus as well. Head Start uses the main building for some parent training and information classes via Esperanza is that program. And then over in the back, we've got other CAP Sonoma programming, Avance and Pasitos, and you'll hear more about these programs from Lisa in a moment. And then the Wellness Center is located there as well, and that's our Santa Rosa City Schools Wellness Center, which you'll hear a little bit more about as well.
And so I'm highlighting for everybody, the classrooms that we're describing in the back are the Head Start classrooms that are part of the bid and the construction. And so what we'll be doing as you hear that described, we'll be talking about a playground, that we're working on. There's a 4th classroom here that we'll be using for Head Start, moving over a Head Start program that we currently have at Ridgeway. And then there's a teacher's, Miss Grimaldi's classroom, and other support services will be in this area. So this is the part of the campus that we're referring to. But as Ms. Plack identified, we have people coming here daily in our early Head Start program, our DHH infant, our preschool speech, occupational therapy, and the CCS programs, as well as the VS Barons that she described. Let's see if I can get out of, okay, let me see if I close this, give me a moment. There we go. Oh, now I got to erase.
This is just a picture of the four portables that we're talking about for the Head Start classrooms. There'll be an infant classroom, a toddler classroom, and 2 preschool classrooms.
On. Oh, Crazy Mouse is going the wrong way again. Diane, I know you've had that problem too. Give me a second. Okay, up to you.
And then we've got the 2 rooms that Steve mentioned as well, that will be special education rooms, a resource room where we can provide services to students, as well as sensory needs and address needs of the students. And then another room for the related support services like speech and language, OT, vision services, deaf and hard of hearing services. I think, Lisa, this is where you're going to talk a little bit more about the services from Cap-Sonoma.
Yes, thank you. So as we talked about, Cap-Sonoma is currently operating programs at the Lewis site. So there are definitely parent education classes. Avance and Pasitos are a mixture of parent education and playgroup. So they come together and work again with that 2-generation whole family approach. And Via Esperanza is, of course, our family resource center where a lot of wonderful programming happens. And so all of those things will simply complement the inclusive, pretty much infant through preschool and entering kindergarten vision that we've worked on for so long.
And our family wellness is a board. You've seen this before. This is currently our family wellness center, and that's part of this. Part of this vision was to be able to provide counseling and even light medical or nursing needs. And so part of the integration of this program is allows us and has a place where we can do these welfare check, where we could have counseling, we can work with families, and we can kind of just continue to integrate that per the name into the existing things that we're working on. This is just a sample of our Lewis has become a real center point. This is a sample of our CCS program, the ones with the severe medical needs that they've done on our program. This is a SELPA-wide, county-wide program where students with these needs come to do whatever their services are daily or weekly at Lewis. And this is an example of them all working together. And with that, Mr. Mike Braff will discuss a little bit about our bidding process.
Good evening, Board. Superintendent Kitamura. As Superintendent Missouri and Head Start asked of the Facilities Department, we designed and bid the remodel of classrooms at the Lewis campus to accommodate the Head Start program. I'll elaborate on what the project will provide in a moment, but first let's go over the bidding process. In December, on December 29th, notice inviting bids went out. On December 29th, the first publication went out. On the January 4th, the second publication went out, and there was a mandatory bid conference on January 12th. January 28th, bids were due. The district received 5 bids. In reviewing the bid documents, the first apparent or the low bidder documents were received and reviewed, and it was determined that they were a non-responsive bidder due to not providing correct documents and not providing a complete cost to fulfill the project. They were then notified, and a post-bid interview was given with them to provide any information that they could. Long story short, they agreed that they didn't provide a complete package, which deemed them non-responsive. So we went to the second bidder, and that is who is being proposed tonight. And with that said, moving forward to the project description, this project will remodel 4 classrooms. It will remodel a toilet building. It will provide new space and reconfiguration for new finishes, which equates to a kitchenette and restrooms for the little kids, along with a playground. The project estimated timelines, these have changed due to we're here at the 17th. The notice of intent was sent out a few days ago to the contractor. The notice of award, if the board approves this project tonight, will go out to the contractor tomorrow. With that said, the estimated time for the notice to proceed will be 10 days from that point, with the estimated start date of 2/28, with the completion date of January 6th.
Ongoing costs that we've developed into this model, in addition to the cost for the building project, we feel because of the number of students that are on campus. So currently there are over 100 students that come through both Steel Lane, the programs that we were described. This will add at least another 60 to 75 students that'll be on campus on a daily basis. So that's over 200 students that'll be under the supervision of a program manager. And what we're requesting in this is that, similar to any elementary school that has over 200 students coming to it daily, there are additional needs, including clerical support that support parents in registration. We need to remember that in the preschool program, parents do not just register in the summer. Every time a child turns 3 throughout the school, actually the calendar year, they're coming in and registering. So there are families that are registering and accessing the program every month. In addition, we have to increase the current custodial staff is there. As you can imagine right now, providing just some outside additional hour custodian. But when we have over 200 students, there needs to be somebody on campus at all times to do and remediate any issues that come up. Our current revenues, as we described, are with the Head Start program. The current lease arrangements, Cap Sonoma and the SELPA also provide additional funding for the rooms that they lease. I know that Deputy Superintendent Mr. Rick Edson is also looking at leases and developing fair market values to see if those leases need to be adjusted as we go forward as well. One of the things I think is very important to recognize in this process, in the board's mission and vision priorities, there are elements of every single one of these priorities within this project. Everything about the whole child, whole student, inclusive education, bringing our general ed students in contact with our special ed students, working with families and the partnerships in the communities. It really does touch all those different areas. And it's, I think, very proud that this program comes forward to you at this time. I would like to personally thank Janelle and her team for all your work in the preschool program. Mr. Johns, Ms. Grimaldi, thank you very much for your presentation and your work. And Mr. Braff, thank you for your support of the project and everything we've done. And with that, board will take questions at this time.
All right, board questions? Director De La Cruz.
Thank
Director
you so
Flores
much.
after that.
Such a great presentation. I had the pleasure of visiting the Steel Lane program with the wonderful Mr. Johns as my guide. And so my question is really, how does this connect with the Steel Lane program, and will it take away from the excellent work that's being done at Steel Lane? How do we kind of connect those dots between the programs to make sure that we're really supporting the work that has been done at Steel Lane to create that very supportive community, and bringing that over into Lewis? Can you talk more about how those two programs will be connected?
Go ahead, please. Thank you, Janelle or Robert.
Yeah, well, we work very closely as a team and have regular staff meetings and other meetings outside of that. And so anybody supporting this program over at Lewis would be part of the team, and we would all be working together to determine how to best serve our students in any of our programs within the preschool program. And we do have students who sometimes start out in a community preschool program, and it's determined that they need additional support, and they might move over to our classes at Steel Lane. Conversely, we also have students who are served in our special day classes who get that proper early intervention and make tremendous progress, and we're able to move them into a less restrictive setting, and they might move over into a community preschool program with just minimal special education support. So it's meant to be a fluid and a flexible system based on what the students need.
Okay, great.
And it shouldn't be taking away anything at all from the Steel Lane program, just adding more opportunities for our preschoolers.
Excellent. Thank you.
Director Flores.
Well, thank you for the presentation. It's great. And I think you answered my question. I do have a small little question here about the bidding process. Let's see here. It says here that the notice of award it's going out tomorrow, but according to what we have here, it says 2/11. I think we need to rectify that.
Thank you.
And, here's my question. So I kind of missed how kids are being identified in this. I know it's special ed, but what exactly is the process? You know, I did see that families have to be at 130 below the poverty line. And how are parents going to be contacted about this, and how would they know that this is happening?
So let's two things. Let's split that up, Lisa. Let's split that up with participation for preschool into Head Start. The participation into special education is generally a referral process, but there's some important connections for early interventions and teachers understanding that there may be disabilities as well. Lisa, could you speak to the part about Head Start and their communication and how they enroll?
One important aspect of what we have built into our Head Start program is what we call over income slots. So we have a small number of over income slots that we reserve for our community partners in which to serve our special education children. So if we receive a referral from the school district for a child to participate in the Head Start program, they would go through our eligibility process, but they would become categorically eligible and therefore not constrained by the income limits at that point.
And also, Director Flores, you know, part of the partnership that we have with Via Esperanza is that they become very aware of Head Start programs and the integration of them into one of our Head Start programs, whether it's here, whether it's Cook in their neighborhood. And also it gives them kind of a foot in the door already. And I think that's one of the strengths of our partnerships, that we can really roll a lot of those families right into one of the Head Start openings. And of course, by opening 4 more classrooms or 3 more classrooms, we're able to really increase that in a huge way.
Thank you.
I see Vice President McCormick's hand.
I would just like to make a motion that we approve the bid and contract approval of Lewis Education Center Preschool.
Second.
Okay, so that was motioned by Director McCormick and seconded by Director Medina. Is that right? Any other discussion, board? All right, Adina, we can have that vote, please.
Director Lopez.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director Medina.
Aye.
Director Manieri.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
Director Flores.
Aye.
President Fong.
Aye, thank you. That passes. Thank you very much for that presentation, everyone, and Assistant Superintendent Nazira.
Thank you, board, very much.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, team, again.
All right, we are moving on. We are in discussion item D, item 2. This is an action item, approval of board member school site liaison assignments. Can we get that up on the screen? And so, as you know, board members are assigned liaison schools, generally for kind of like when the new board takes over, like the end of December for that next calendar year. So it's not a school year, it's a calendar year, January to December pretty much. And this time we have written down the trustee areas, the numbers on the trustee areas. So for example, we see the first one is Jill McCormick as the vice president. She was elected by District 2. And so we generally, and we have agreed as a board that we are not going to be representing our districts per se, that we are standing and representing every student and every family in our district. So this was kind of what you haven't done before or who you haven't been with before, switching it up and not in your trustee area. The only schools aren't on here that I think I'm going to suggest that we have on here would be Learning House, which is new. The president generally doesn't take a liaison school because you're doing other things that has been historical. But I would love to take on Learning House. And also it seems to me that Lewis Educational Center and Lewis Early Learning Center would be another site that I could take on as well. So, board, questions? I only see Director Flores' picture. We can take, yeah, so you're going to have to like raise your hand virtually with the little hand thing. So Director Flores.
So just to clarify this, the parenthesis next to the name of the high school or the middle school or the elementary is the trustee area, right?
So Santa Rosa High School is followed by a 3 in parentheses. That is in District 3.
Right. So, I was going through these and it looks like we may have to clean this up because, let me see, Santa Rosa High School happens to be in District 1, not 3. It's right across my street. So, and then I thought Santa Rosa Middle also was. So anyway, so I think we need to clean this up a little bit. Can I just send this over to Diane or Adina? I don't want to waste too much time here.
Oh, there are more that you have on there?
Yeah, let me see. I found Santa Rosa High School and Santa Rosa Middle, but I didn't do everybody else's. So.
Okay, so if we clean that up, that sounds good to you?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. I see Vice President McCormick's hand up.
I just would like to move that we approve the board member school site liaison assignments for 2021 and pending the corrections we'll make on making sure all the schools are listed in the proper areas.
And would that include me being the liaison for Learning House Lewis Educational Center?
Yes.
All right. So someone's going to speak up with a second.
I would second.
Boy, that's really hard. I think that was Director Flores. All right, so that was motion by Director McCormick and seconded by Director Flores. Any other discussion, board? Dina, may we have that vote, please?
Director Lopez.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director Flores. Director Monieri.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
Director Medina.
Aye.
President Fong.
Aye, thank you. And Director Lopez, you can visit any school you'd like to. All right, we're moving on to item 3. This is a discussion action item, board meeting procedures review. And can we show that on the screen? So this one, if you're looking at it on your own, it's the guide to board meeting discussion and action items. And this follows actually directly board policy 9323. And this is what we have been doing. And do we have any questions, board? Or comments, questions or comments?
I do.
Okay, sorry. I wasn't watching that. Go ahead.
So yeah, so basically, I guess my question is, because it is exactly pretty much 9323, why do we need another document for the same thing?
I think in the past, people were confused. So a former president just put this together and we've been using it ever since. And it was just kind of a handy dandy sheet, that's all. But yes, it follows exactly board policy 9323.
So I guess my question again is, why do we need a second document when it's exactly the same?
We don't really need it. I use it just because it's handy dandy. But again, it's the same. So no one signs it. No one really signs it. So I guess we
The
are
only reason I
agreeing
say
to
is 'cause-
9323.
Yeah, the only thing, because whenever I'm looking to understand, I just go straight to the board bylaws, which would be 9323. And so like this, I don't even know, like, where would you keep it? Where would you store it to then refer to, aside from like having it in some obscure place? And I think the bylaws are, in a sense, effective enough already as it is. And I don't think we need to have any additional change or documents. That's just my position.
So Director Medina, can the question then be that, are we agreeing with board policy 9323? Because we haven't moved to change that at all.
We voted on 9323 after it was presented way back in like, what, 2019? So I think that we agreed then, and I'm okay with that. I haven't seen any need to change it.
Would you say that we still need an action on this, or can we table that because it really is a moot point because we have 9323?
I think we could table it. I mean, I really don't know why it came up to begin with.
Because in the special session, we wanted to make sure that we were on the same page and that we're still doing discussion the way we said we were going to do discussion, that we're following board policy, and that we were doing action the way we said we were going to do action because we're following board policy. So it really was a way for the board to relook at how we do our discussion and action items.
Okay. Well, hopefully everybody is on the same page, unless everybody has questions and we can discuss.
Jill has her hand up.
Vice President McCormick.
So I agree with Director Medina. I don't think we need to vote on this or approve it as an action item because it's already approved. But I do appreciate that we've brought it up, especially since we have new staff members, new board member, just so that we can go over it. And then I just want to say my 2 cents, which is on, now it's off the screen, but when we go, can someone put it back up on the screen for me?
Yeah.
Really quick?
Well, hold on.
I mean, I can pull it up too.
No, I got it.
Okay. So many screens going.
You see it?
Nope, I see your desktop.
Nope. You guys all look so good. Hold on.
Yeah. So where where the board asks for questions before we go to public comments. And myself included, I'm checking myself as well and humbly as I say this, we need to do a better job as a board sticking to questions on step number 2 on the action items. We tend to go off and comment and then stick a question in at the end. And we need, for the sake of time and focus and to get to public comments for overall time management of our meetings, we need to make sure that we're asking questions, and those questions need to be questions that aren't necessarily ones that we could have prepared or asked about prior to meetings. These are ones basically on the presentation that was given. And I just want to say that out loud, that we all need to be better at that, myself included. So I just want to make sure that we, since we're taking this opportunity to revisit this, I think we have a real problem with number 2, and we start to comment there, and that we should reserve our comments until after we hear public comment, and then do the discussion. So there you go.
All right, so I'm looking at your virtual hands being raised to call on you. Okay, I'd like to just say that we can move this just to discussion. Can we do
That's
that?
fine. Yeah, that's why I specifically put it as action discussion, because I realize that some of it might not take action. You might not take action on some of it.
All right, so I agree with Director Medina, but really this is what we need to be doing. This is following board policy 9323. And to Jill's comment, yes, about the questions. I think we're actually better at that. But again, as we all know, our meetings are taking way too long. And we need to be efficient. So any other discussion, any other comments? And then we will leave this one. I don't see anybody's hand up. All right, let's move on to discussion action number 3, which is the board meeting procedures review. Whoops, our norms. And this is a page that we generally sign each year. And now that we have a different board member, we need to discuss and take a look at this again and agree on what we want. And then we'll get to sign it again. So that's really tiny. So I'm going to be pulling one up.
Oh.
Okay, communication norms. I assume you've all read it. On anything that you'd like to change, delete, add. Vice President McCormick.
I move to approve these board communication norms as stated here.
Second.
And that was a second from Director Manieri.
Yes.
All right. Other discussion, board?
Just a question. Are we reapproving? Because then we already approved these.
We are reapproving.
Because of Director.
New member.
New member, Director Flores.
Okay.
All right, so we have the vote, please?
Director Lopez.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director Manieri.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
Director Flores.
Aye.
Director Medina.
Aye.
President Fong.
Aye, thank you. That passes. We are going to take a minute for an interpreter switch right now before item 5.
Thank you, President Fong.
I'm ready.
We're all set.
All right, thank you. Thank you to our interpreters. Thank you very much. We are on discussion and action item number 5, which is a time for us to revisit, which we do annually, our vision, mission, and priorities review. And so, gosh, I think we wrote this, was it 2 or 3 years ago? Superintendent, I can't remember. Or Director Sheffield, you were there too, I think.
2019.
Okay, all right. So I want to open up to the board for your comments. Again, we're very proud of it. We've been using it. It's been a living document, which I'm very, very glad that we refer to it all the time, that I know our superintendent refers to and our cabinet refers to it all the time in terms of what guides our district. This is the document that guides our district, that guides our LCAP. This is what we say is important to us as a board, as we stand in the community for public education. It's an incredibly important document, and I'm very proud of it. But it is time for us to relook at it because things change and things get updated. And I'd like to hear your comments.
And we have a new board member again, so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Director Medina has his hand up.
Yeah, I just want to, reemphasize when we re-looked at this, it was 5 years after the one prior, and I think this one's supposed to last for 5 years. I think we put a lot of work into it. I think I really am proud of what came out as a final product of this. I think I'm glad that we're constantly keeping it in reference on our agenda items. I think it's still good, it's still relevant. And I think it's good through 2024 in my eyes. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, other comments? Vice President McCormick, and then Director Manieri.
We can continue discussion, but I was just going to move that we approve or reapprove our revisited mission, vision, and priorities. I am also very proud of this document and have been looking at it a lot in the face of the big decisions that we're making right now and the ones that we have ahead of us. So anyways, so I move to approve.
I second.
Okay, so that was moved by Director McCormick and seconded by Director De La Cruz. Further discussion, board?
Okay, can I just offer a friendly amendment? Because I think that, we've already approved this, and I think I would offer the friendly amendment of being a motion to reaffirm our commitment to our mission, vision, and priorities.
Friendly amendment accepted.
I like that. All right, may we have that vote, please?
Director Lopez.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Manieri.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
Director Flores.
Aye.
Director Medina.
Aye.
President Fong.
Aye, thank you, everyone. I share this a lot, and I know that our cabinet members, our superintendent does, and I'm assuming our board members share it a lot too, and I reference it a lot. I think it's a living document. So thank you, everyone. All right, we are now to D6. And in a way, it's a very sad day that we're having to do this, Dr. Kitamura, but we are supporting you, and that the executive board and I had done some work behind the scenes to bring these 4 firms to you. We chose these 4 firms for various reasons, but we've done some research in our area in terms of which firms to bring to you. And we've invited them tonight to present to us for 15 minutes presentation, and there's an online thing you can look at. And then 15 minutes of questions. We'd like to try to keep it to that.
Adina, can you bring over the first group?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, President Fong, I just wanted the process to start.
And
bringing
in
them up.
looking at all these firms, I did a lot of research on like districts and districts around us in terms of, you know, what search firms other districts have been using. And these are the ones that floated to the top. So these are presented for you tonight. And we're starting, I believe, with, gosh, Dean, who are we starting with tonight?
Hazard Young, Atay and Associates. Yeah.
And I have brought over both individuals, Jackie and Carolyn, so they should be joining us any moment.
See, I'm unmuted.
I am unmuted, but I think I need you to see me. There we go.
All right, can you see me? There we are. Good evening.
Good evening. Is it okay if I share my screen? Do you have to give me permission?
Permission is enabled, so you can go ahead and share.
Okay. If it's okay with you, I'm just going to put up our PowerPoint.
Sure.
Good.
Okay, just give me 1 second here.
Maybe while Jackie gets started, we can go on record of thanking you for having us. President Fong, we were delighted to be invited. And of course, we are joining you in celebrating the history of Superintendent Kitamura. She's really well known and regarded in our industry and in our state and county. So we want to celebrate her and also give you some information about our firm. So, Miss Jackie, are we ready?
I think we are definitely ready. And I do want to say how much we love your logo. Some of the things that we always comment on whenever we have the opportunity to steal it from your website and put it on one of our documents. So, Carolyn.
Well, let me introduce myself and then I'll ask Jackie to introduce some of the other members of our team. I'm Carolyn McKinnon and I am a senior associate with Hazard Young Atay and Associates, been with them about 15 years. I was a superintendent in California, Northern California for 16 years in 2 different districts. And prior to that time, I was a school administrator, sat in all the chairs. I've completed over 70 searches, mostly in California, but I also do national work and worked in districts from 450 to 630,000. So I feel like we would benefit from being able to work with you, and I hope you would benefit from us as well. Jackie, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name is Dr. Jackie Horsch. You'll see Jacqueline up there, but I go by Jackie. And I, of course, have been a superintendent as well. I was a superintendent for 9 years in San Jose, California. I retired going on 6 years ago. And since that time, I have been working for Hazard Young and Atay, doing executive searches, mostly superintendents. And like Carolyn, I've done a number of them in California and some nationally. So I do think as we go through the presentation, you'll see that we see that as an advantage. Unfortunately, our colleague Martha Martinez cannot be here today. She also is a former superintendent, most recently from Salinas City Schools, and she is the co-executive director right now of CALSA, the California Association of Latinx Administrators. And prior to that, she is past president when she was superintendent of that organization. So she brings to our search also a great deal of experience and networks and connections. So Carolyn?
Yes, we have 2 other members of our team. These are individuals who work in our office. Danielle Martell is our project manager. She handles all of the details, all of the questions, takes care of all of the information we need to gather and get, and keeps us moving forward. Nancy Ann Perez is also one of our managers. She manages our office in Schaumburg, Illinois, and she is also available to us. And she does a good deal of the work in terms of what we're doing, oversight. We all need oversight in these ladies both provide us oversight. So we are fortunate to have them, and we're fortunate that they are on call as we are. Feel free to call us. We want to say 24/7, but we're not quite sure we want the 24, but certainly if you need to call, we'll answer the phone, and we're delighted to be here today.
Okay, and because we're really mindful of the time constraints, we're probably going to go through this quickly so that we are sure that we have our 15 minutes so we can answer our questions. But please, hopefully you'll listen quickly, and we'll speak relatively quickly to honor your time. So I think this really summarizes our commitment to you. We are absolutely committed to making sure that we customize our search to meet your needs. We do it your way. We have a research-based process, but having said that, we work very, very closely with you as a board to determine how do you want us to do it. We also want you to know that we are also very committed to identifying those leaders who come from underrepresented groups. And we do everything we can to mitigate that impact of any social barriers that may have marginalized candidates so that they aren't representative of our student populations and representative of the districts that we are serving.
Well, HYA at a glance, and let me just back up and tell you why we think the decision you're going to make sometime this evening or in the near future is so important, because what's important is great districts need to focus on what matters, and that has to do with student outcomes, community support, and fiscal responsibility. And we take that very seriously, and we have it on the wall, so to speak. So we're reminded about why it's important that we bring to you highly qualified candidates. Yes, we've been around for 32 years, serving school districts across the country. We've done in excess of 1,400 searches and placed executives in a variety of school districts, small, large, urban, suburban, rural, all of those. And we pride ourselves on having a national network of people that we can go to. There are 120 of us across the country, and we think that's a tremendous advantage to us, because we can reach out to those 120 very quickly and share information about candidates we're looking for. And we have trust and confidence in the relationship and in the information these other search consultants give to us. So we think that we bring a tremendous advantage because of our national presence, as well as our presence in California. And we, both Jackie and I, have held offices and been elected by our peers, and you read our resumes, so you know that about us. So we think we are well suited to assist you in your search. And we've said it and we'll say it again. It's your search. We'll do it your way. We actually have some pretty good ideas because we've done a lot of searches, and we can tell you things that work and don't work. And then you can decide if that's going to work for you. So we're delighted to get to be here.
Okay. One of the things that we really have talked about before is we want to assist you in finding the absolute right match for your district. And that's why it's important that we work really closely with you. And as Carolyn has mentioned in this last slide, our national network is extremely critical in helping us really identify a diverse slate of candidates that we think match those characteristics that you have and your community have helped us identify.
We think we're the preeminent national firm, partly because we've been around probably longer than anyone else. And we also have some unique services. We offer a board portal where you will have access to everything about the search that we have access to. We will give you each access to that portal. You can read along, follow along, look at the proposals, look at the applications of candidates. We also are very involved in community engagement. We think that as a school district, you want to involve as many individuals in your district as you can, so that they'll feel involved, feel that you've heard from them, you want their opinions, and those opinions will sway when you begin to look for your next superintendent. Of course, we offer transition services. Should you ever want to talk about that, we'd be glad to, but that's not important right now. And I already spoke about executive oversight, and I want to make that very clear. These people that work in our office, in our home office in Schaumburg, Illinois, are very highly qualified, have been with HYA for numbers of years, are skilled in what they do, and they bring to us a rich reservoir of information, all kinds of things that we might need to know. So I hope you would see that we have quite an array of resources to offer to you.
Okay, I'm going to go over this quickly because we're going to try to tell you in greater detail about each one of these, but I do want to give you just sort of that 35,000 foot level look. We have a 4-step process. Engage, that's a whole stakeholder engagement process we'll tell you about. Recruit, very important. As soon as we find out what that selection criteria is, those desired characteristics that you think are going to make this next superintendent successful, we recruit using that as kind of our framework for who we're looking for. Select, we work with you very closely in that last process. And then, as Carolyn said, we transition. We don't just leave you the day you appoint your superintendent. We're there to help that next superintendent become successful as the superintendent of your district. So we'll go into these in a little more detail. Carolyn?
The engage phase is the way we get started, and this is the place where we want to get off to a good start. So the first thing we're going to do is ask you to give us a couple of hours at a meeting so that we can plan every step of this process. We want you to bring your calendars and be ready to commit to the kind of work we need to do. You'll have to help us determine in the surveys, and when I say surveys about the district, we're talking about getting out there and meeting the people. And you've seen on this chart, you can see we suggest to you that you hold town hall meetings, board interviews, individual meetings, focus groups, and other community groups. We think that it is important, exceptionally important, that everyone who can be involved will be involved. And that survey is also resourceful to people who cannot in any other way be involved in the search. They can complete a survey and still be an important part of your process. After we go through this, what we call a planning meeting, we'll come back with all of the decisions that you have agreed to, that you've made, and you've given us our direction. We'll come back, we'll share that with you, and then we'll go about holding all these interviews that we've talked about. And when that's over, we'll bring to you what we call a leadership profile, and it will be an amalgamation of all of the information you've given us. We have a format. We'll share all of the comments we receive, and then we'll wrap that up in terms of making some generalizations about the kind of desired characteristics you want in this new superintendent. And that'll put us on the next phase.
Right. And I also want to just emphasize, in case we didn't, that we have been doing these searches in our COVID-19 environment very, very successfully. We have very actively been able to engage community stakeholders through Zooms. We've had great positive feedback from everyone with whom we've worked, whether it's an individual interview or focus group interviews or community meetings. So we have a lot of experience doing this now, and we really feel that that's going to be important to you as you continue to search in the environment that keeps changing daily, but we're prepared to be doing it in the COVID-19 environment. So the next thing that we do is we recruit. And this is, I think, probably one of the most important parts of our search process. We, of course, do regional and national advertising. We've got a great social media presence. I think you'll see that our national website is kind of the go-to place for candidates seeking that next leadership position. But more importantly, I think it's our proactive, aggressive recruitment, okay? We mentioned those national network associates that we have. This really helps us get a diverse slate of candidates. We reach out to them. We contact the people that they tell us about. We also have all of our own networks that we've been working with, our database that HYA has. So once we know what it is you're looking for in that candidate, we use that to start looking at who matches that criteria and who should we tap on the shoulder. And again, it's really important to us to identify candidates from underrepresented groups. We want to make sure that all qualified candidates are brought, forward so that they have equal opportunity to take these top leadership positions in our top districts. The next thing that we do during recruitment is, unlike many, probably most of the other search firms, not only do we paper screen all the applicants, but we individually interview them. We used to, of course, do it face-to-face, but now in the virtual environment, we're doing virtual interviews with all of the viable candidates that we feel match your criteria. That doesn't mean we interview every single one of them. In a typical search, if we have 40 applicants, we may paper screen it down to 20 or 25 that really match that criteria. But then those 25 we do have an individual interview with so that we can get to know them a little better. And we do reference checks at that time to make sure there's nothing in their background that might have any stigma, any problem for us if we decide to recommend that you take a look at them in terms of your interviews. So that's kind of the next phase that we go through. And after that,
before we move, I do want to drop back and say something about underrepresented and marginalized individuals. For many years now, we have cultivated relationships with CASA, the California Association of Latino School Administrators, CASA, the Association for African American School Administrators, both locally and nationally. We are very supportive of those national organizations, whether it's ALAS or some of the others. So that is not new to us. That has been our process. We do all of that work that we've done with them is pro bono. First of all, we support the work they do, and we want to bring candidates that represent the spectrum of all of us, men, women, etc. So we're highly involved in reaching out. We also do pro bono work with some of the major universities and colleges. They have training where they're working with new superintendents or aspiring superintendents. We also do that as pro bono because it's important to us that we have a rich field of candidates that we can bring to boards that would conceivably be the best there is in terms of that match. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Let me quickly jump to the select phase. And this is pretty important, as Jackie talked about the review process, because we want to make sure that when we help a board identify candidates, we already have culled down the kinds of till we get to the candidates that we think are the best match for you. And we are committed to spending the time and energy. And I can assure you that when we do one of those pre-screening interviews, it takes us about an hour, but it's worth it because it gives us an opportunity to get to know them in a virtual environment as we speak, but finding the right candidate to bring to you. And then we facilitate the process all along. We will do multiple interviews with people in your organization that you've identified. We say we're going to give you up to 4 days. I don't think we've ever stayed there. We're going to do it until we feel like we've heard from everyone we should hear from. Then we're going to assist you in bringing those people in to meet you. We're again going to screen. We're going to go back. We're going to call the references, find out who really is the best match. We're going to read the reviews. And we do have the opportunity based on our national network to check. It's not the background check literally yet, but to check with people so that we can get information that you need to know in terms of helping you make the best choice for candidates. So we will do all of the work beside you, and we'll do the work ahead of you as you get prepared for the interviews you're going to hold. We have a wonderful website that'll give you information about, you'll be able to review the applications and all of those things so that when we come to you with the names of candidates, you will be prepared to ask us more questions because you've already read their references, you've read all the information about them in their application. And our application process is lengthy, and it includes references and information about their transcripts, where they went to school. There's just a lot of information should you choose to do that. Not everyone wants that. Some want us to bring it to me and tell me what you think. So we take this phase very seriously.
Dr. McKinnon, are you ready to wrap up?
We have 1 more minute. Want to bring that in, Jackie?
You can see the value added, all of these things that we feel are really important. We've mentioned most of them, so we do think there's a great deal of value added. We've talked, you have our proposal, you know that our fee structure is $26,000, and that of course is, assuming it's a virtual, except perhaps for the final interviews. But it includes your national, your regional postings. It includes a web-based community service. We do recommend you think about independent due diligence services, and those are an optional cost. And if you're interested, we can talk to you about that.
I do want you to know about the guarantees, and I think you may have read them, but this is very serious and we've taken good time. I just want to share one thing with you. When we say if someone leaves us before 2 years is up, we'll come back. We had the opportunity to do that with a very large company, a large school district here in California, and their superintendent died a few days after the timeline. We came back, 2 of us went back and did that recruiting part, helping the board select their candidates at no cost, because we think this is not about making money necessarily. It is about finding the best fit. And we want to be responsive to those districts that we work with, and hoping you'll call us back sometime if you need a search ever again. Thank you.
And these are the rest of the guarantees. Hopefully you had a chance to look at them in our proposal, and that brings us to questions or comments.
Thank you so much. Can we stop screen sharing, please?
I can. Give me 1 second. There.
So board, we are going to be asking, we have a time limit for ourselves as well. So that's a 15-minute time limit. And we are going to be asking clarifying questions of this firm only, or more information if you need. So Director Manieri.
Oh, can you hear me? Yes, okay. Thank you for that presentation. I just have one quick question. The community survey component of your process, is that a community survey that can be administered in different languages?
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you. That was my only question.
Other questions, board members? Director Sheffield.
Thank you for the presentation. Very impressed with your proposal, particularly the 4-step process that you had highlighted, with specific emphasis on engagement, recruitment, and transitioning. On engagement, how have you been engaging with the community during the pandemic? You highlighted that you have been doing this. I'm just wondering how successful it's been in getting the desired participation from the community that you would want to get.
Well, let Jackie begin. She's had the most experience, but I'll chime in also because as someone who had not had that much experience, I'd be happy and willing to share how it worked for me.
Well, I have to tell you, I was very concerned when the whole pandemic came about, worrying about how we were going to engage with the community. But I think all of you have probably had very similar experiences, because as you have your board meetings, right, you are engaging in your community. I know that your meetings are a meeting of the board in public, but to some extent they are public meetings where you are presenting things to the community. I've had great responses. We work with the district to identify which groups, and we, send Zoom invitations out to those groups. For a large community meeting, what we ask is we tell them when we're going to have the community meeting, and give them the Zoom link so that they can Zoom in if they choose to do so. And we try to use the chat room so that as speakers have questions, they can put their name up. And so we have a facilitator who then is able to call on them in the order of their questions. And we've had up to, 60, 70 people on a community Zoom. And it's been, I think, very successful. The other piece of it that's been real successful is, and I don't know that we went into this detail, but for our engage phase, we ask basically the same 3 questions of all of the individual interviews or the focus groups, whatever we're doing. And that is, what are the strengths of the district? Because we want to know what is it that the community values, what do they want to maintain or move forward? What are the challenges that they see facing the district? So we're able to determine when we start recruiting candidates, do they have the skill set, the expertise, the experience to meet these challenges? And they need to know what it is that they're facing as well. And then the last thing is, what are the desired characteristics that people want to see in that superintendent? And we use that for our selection criteria. When we have those things, we are then able to take all of the information and we aggregate it together and give the board, of course, a disaggregated report that we call the leadership profile. But we take those same 3 questions and we do our community web-based survey. And generally speaking, we've done it in 2 languages, English and Spanish. So they have the same 3 questions. And we're able to take all of the responses from those 3 questions. And we generally get literally hundreds of responses on that web-based community survey. So if people haven't been able to attend the community meeting, they weren't part of a focus group, they have the opportunity to give us the same information on the web-based survey, and all of that is aggregated together for you, so you understand those types of things.
Yeah, thank you. And just a follow-up question is that, knowing that you've been doing some recruitment during the pandemic, are there any regional candidates that you've recruited through this process?
When you say regional.
Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area.
Absolutely, yes. Just having done so many searches in person, I had some reluctance with the virtual environment. It's gone after maybe the first opportunity to meet with people. It's just not difficult. In fact, I think we'll probably see remainders of this even after the pandemic leaves us and we can be in the same room with each other. It's very effective. And there'll be people who will be involved who wouldn't be involved because they have to go home, take care of the kids, get dinner, that sort of stuff. And you can invite them in to be in the home and interviewing in the confines of the living room or the kitchen. It's been very effective. And
and the reason why I had asked regionally, so that we might have a sense of who, how the process looked. We could look and see the way it was done if there was an East Bay district or, a greater San Francisco or South Bay district. So I'm wondering specifically, is there a specific district where you've done a superintendent recruitment that we can look at?
I recently did Salinas, but it's South Bay.
That's fine. That's something for us to look at. Okay. Thank you. That all stop there.
I see no other board members' hands up. Yes, Director Flores.
So we raise our virtual hands, and I think Jill also raised her hand, just so you know. I liked well, thank you for your presentation, by the way, very thorough. Going through, reading this yesterday, I really like the fact that you have delineated your timeline pretty carefully. So my question to you is, how likely are you to keep the fidelity of the timeline that you're giving yourself here, given the fact that, we're in a pretty stringent, time frame?
We are quite likely to keep the fidelity of the timeline. The only thing that changes it would be if you as a district, if you needed changes or you needed accommodations for something, we will work with you. And that's one of the reasons that we start in that planning process. We say, bring your calendars so that everyone can, at this moment, you can be assured you're available at the times you should be available. We have a chart and we'll share it with you, which shows when you need to be available and when we need to be available. And we'll work together to make sure that we can accommodate you for whatever your calendars are about. And we know things happen and sometimes we have to change, but we don't do a lot of that. We just, once people get that on their calendar, it seems, unless there's an emergency. We had that just recently. We moved on without that one board member, but the fidelity of the calendar is very important because you need to get your superintendent in place, so to speak, July 1. So we must have enough time to go through the processes of getting you there. And we've outlined them pretty carefully if you saw that flow chart.
Thank you.
All right. I see no other hands. Vice President McCormick put her hand down. So Doctors McKenna, and I'm sorry, how do you pronounce, Jackie, how do you pronounce your last name?
Horsch.
Horsch. Okay, got that. Thank you very much. And I trust you'll be available later on for a conversation if we need that.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your attention. We appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thank you for that very thorough presentation and the one you sent electronically that we attached to the agenda as well.
Thank you.
We appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, Adina, we have the next search firm.
Yes, they are on their way over, and we have the Costco group.
So that would be the Costco group. You said Costco, right? It sounded like Costco. Costco group.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Roger Galizzi. Can you see me now and hear me?
Hello, Mr. Galizzi and Mr. Shapiro.
Yes, I'm Joel Shapiro. How are you?
Good. Thank you for being here.
Our pleasure.
I'm
I believe, Roger, you're going to present our PowerPoint so we can
Yes.
get the screen sharing.
Yes.
And again, we'd like to thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you this evening and talk about the Costco Group.
All right, there we go. Joel is our president of the CASA group, and I'm one of the partners. And one of the consultants for this group is Dr. Linda Kimball. She's not able to be with us tonight. She had a happy sudden occasion. Her daughter is giving birth to her first child, and so she was called out of the state. So Joel's kind of pitching in today, so I appreciate that. Talk a little bit about the Costco Group. First of all, we're proven. We've got a documented record of success. 93% of our candidates that we place have been in place for 5 years or longer. And for California superintendents, that's a pretty good record. We have national consultants. We are experienced. We have 24 members that compose our network that we utilize for this search process. We are transparent. We give the board all the information about every candidate. We don't hold back any applicant information. We want you to have the opportunity to perhaps interview somebody that we might not have recommended to you. And so we do that, and we also continuously communicate with you as the board. This search focuses on your criteria. It's adapted to your needs. The board gets to choose how it's done, and you're the customer, and so we follow your direction. We're pretty cost effective. Our fee is all inclusive. There is unlimited consultant time, and it also includes all the support of all of our partners as well, not just the 2 lead consultants. So every one of our consultants who is appointed as lead, so it'll be Dr. Kimball and myself, this is the only search we're doing at this time, should we be chosen. So we will not be distracted by doing other searches as some other firms do. We have a 2-year guarantee for the placement of the candidate. And if the candidate does not meet your criteria and you need to do an additional search or reach out again, we will do that for free. Additionally, we will not recruit the superintendent that you select for another position. Dr. Kimball is a superintendent from California. She's been in Keppel, Monrovia, Anaheim, and Vista School District. She is fluently Spanish speaking. She's currently on the faculty of Brandman and Laverne University. She's done 2 books on educational or instructional leadership, and she's also the founder of Strategic School Partners. Myself, I'm a former superintendent, Palmdale School District. I've been a principal, director of migrant, immigrant, bilingual education. I've also been in human resources, and I currently consult to school boards and governance teams. I've conducted and overseen searches in the past. My consulting firm is called Every Student Learns, and that the emphasis there on every student learns, and that's my educational philosophy. I'm also an active member in CALSA, CASA, and CABE. I am the sole recipient of the Legacy Award for the California Association of Bilingual Administrators, and I'm have been past president of my local chapter of CABE as well. Joel?
Yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about the phases of the search, but first I'd like to mention that when we look for a superintendent in a district, we find that there are some qualities that every district is looking for that are essential for leadership at every level. And you see what we've listed there. And you're going to find that as a need everywhere. It's going to be a need in Santa Rosa as well. Roger, the next circle, if you will. But there are going to be others, and these are the ones we're going to focus on in our search that are identified by you for you in your district. We'll begin by working with the board and then our outreach to all of your stakeholders that we can possibly meet with, both through focus groups, individual meetings, as well as our surveys that we will get information. And that will give us the information that will help you to know that your unique needs are going to be the focus of our search, because we want to identify the candidates that meet the profile that you and your stakeholders have identified for us. Okay, let's move on. Throughout the search, the communication and updates to the board are constant. We will keep you informed at every step of the way, and we'll be focusing as we talk about the phases, what every step of the way actually looks like. You'll have direct access to us, and we say 24/7, but sometimes it turns out to be about 24/7. We will be available to you, and when I say we, it'll be Dr. Galizzi and Dr. Kimball, and to provide the support that you need throughout the search. We also don't expect your district staff to have to provide any of the work in this. We take care of that. The only time that we ask your district staff to help us is when we schedule these focus group meetings to help us with scheduling because of the timing that works best for some of your different groups. But other than that, your district staff won't have to handle anything. We're going to talk about our different phases, and we have identified 5 phases. We begin with the pre-recruitment. This is our work with the board first. We always begin with a meeting of the board. And at the meeting with the board, we begin by customizing the process to make sure that we have agreed on every aspect of the process that best suits you. Although we have an identified timeline and steps, those are often modified based on what the board needs. So we will customize the timeline. We've given you a timeline within this, but we will verify in our meeting with you that it's a timeline that suits your needs. We begin by asking you the same questions that we're going to be asking every member of your community that we meet with. And we will get the board's initial response to those questions. We will also find out from you which specific groups and individuals you want us to meet with. And we meet often with hundreds of people in the community through the various focus group meetings, the community forums, and then for those people who cannot attend meetings in person, they typically respond to the online survey that we put out. We will then put together for you an extensive report of every comment we have received from every member of your community, staff, parents, community members in all of our meetings. We will highlight the ones that seem to come up over and over again, the trends, because we don't want you to have to dig through all these comments. We'll show you the ones that come up repeatedly. And then we'll meet with the board again, and we will help you take a look at what the stakeholders have told us and compare that to your original input. And together we will determine what the brochure needs to look like, what your district profile should be that will best identify what you're looking for in the candidate that will provide the leadership for your district, in addition to what the strengths and the greatest challenges are for your district. Now we go into the recruitment phase, and in the timeline you'll see that we've got that at approximately 5 weeks. We not only distribute the brochure, and we'll then do the advertising through all of the methods that are most accessible to candidates. Obviously, we use EdJoin, we use EdCal, we go directly to the organizations that specialize in Latino administrators and African American administrators. But our recruitment is very proactive. We're not just advertising, we are, through our partners and through our networks, identifying the candidates that best fit the needs and have the characteristics that have been identified in your profile. And one of the things that truly does differentiate the COSCA Group from many other firms is we do not have a pre-identified stable of candidates. There are some firms that will continue to bring the same candidates forward to be interviewed in district after district, even though the needs of those districts may be very different. We have a number of qualified candidates that we know, but we will specifically identify the candidates whose characteristics best meet the ones that you have identified, rather than look to bring the same candidates forward over and over again. We maintain all the records. We will be making sure that none of this falls onto your staff to handle. And we pre-screen not only pre-screen the paperwork of all the candidates, we conduct interviews personally of every candidate who has applied, who at least meets the minimum qualifications identified. So that will be the majority of candidates who have applied. We will conduct interviews with them prior to even bringing those candidates forward to you. We do our reference checks, and I want to tell you a little bit about our reference checks that I think might also distinguish the work of the COSCA Group. Every candidate, of course, will list the references that they would like us to speak to. What we find is that's not really how you find out where the strengths and weaknesses are of a candidate. You have to dig much, much deeper than that. So when we check references, we ask the people we speak to, who else should we speak to? And we talk to people that we know who the candidate perhaps hasn't even identified. And there have been a number of searches that I've done where candidates who might look good otherwise, we have found through our very, very deep reference checks, have some issues that would suggest they are not the candidate that you're looking for. So the depth of our reference checks, I do believe, will set us apart from many other firms. We then will bring together a panel of experts from our firm to help us using a rubric that we've identified to help select the candidates that we will recommend to you as the most suitable for you to consider. However, you will look at all of the candidates' application materials that will include their references of every candidate who has applied. And that may set us apart from some firms, because there are some firms that will only present the application materials for the candidates that they're recommending. We know that this is your search, this is your decision. So even though we will do our due diligence and tell you why certain candidates are more suitable to meet your qualifications, in our opinion, you will make the decision about who you interview. We'll prepare that complete candidate report and present it back to the board when we meet with you again. And then we will facilitate your selection of which candidates you want to interview. Now, there have been some districts that like to include other people in the interview process, such as other stakeholders, and we're willing to do that, although we recommend that the board own this process. We recommend that when it comes time to do the interviews, since you are going to be responsible for hiring this candidate, that the board own the interview process. Let's go to the next one, Roger. Now, when it comes to the interviews, in addition to helping to facilitate the interviews and developing the interview questions with you, one of the things we do early on is we will present a compensation study to the board. We will look at similar districts, not only in your geographic area, but similar districts in size and demographics in a wide range. And we will give you a comparison of compensation in terms of every aspect of the contracts, because we think it's helpful for the board to know what other districts are including in terms of compensation. So you'll have a pretty good idea. Then we will work with you to develop the interview questions. We will schedule and coordinate the interviews. And by the way, what some firms do, and I'm sorry to share this with you, is if a candidate has applied and is not selected for an interview, sometimes those firms will notify the candidate through a letter, through an email letter. We don't believe in that. We believe that every candidate needs a personal touch from us and a personal phone call, whether or not they've been selected for an interview. And obviously, the majority of candidates who apply will not be selected for interviews. But we think it's very important that they hear directly from us. And we've received a lot of feedback from those candidates that they appreciate that. Typically, you will hold the first round of interviews and then select the interviews, the candidates that you would like to interview again for finalists. And we will then assist you in facilitating who that finalist will be, who your best candidate will be. Most of the time, boards like to conduct a site visit, which means visiting the district where the candidate is currently working, talking to people, a wide range of people who work with that candidate, and really finding out if everything we believe to be true is true. So we will facilitate that site visit for you. We'll be in touch with all candidates again to notify them of the decision. The other thing we do that most boards appreciate and ask for our assistance is we will assist you, if you like, with the negotiation of the employment contract. And sometimes that can get a little touchy, and boards really appreciate having us come in and assist with that, particularly when it comes to communication back and forth between the board and the candidate. They've often found that very helpful. And then we also will help you, if you like, in making the preparations for the final announcement and arrangements for the introduction of your candidate, prepare the press release, all of the pieces that need to go into place so that when you appoint that superintendent, it's a successful event for introducing that candidate to your community. We assist you with that as well. Now, the post-search parts of our service, remember, these are all at no fee. So we will assist the superintendent with if you desire, in setting performance objectives. We'll conduct a workshop at no charge with the board and with your new superintendent for leadership alignment and governance. It's very important, we find, to have that workshop very early on after the new superintendent has started, so that you can be clear on expectations, you can be clear on the superintendent's goals, and on the roles, the respective roles of board members and superintendent for leadership. We also provide mentoring, coaching for 2 years at no fee. And we make ourselves available as very frequent coaching. Often that's in person, but during this period of time, during COVID, we've been conducting most of it through phone calls and through Zoom meetings, but that will be up to the circumstances as they permit. But we find that every person in a new position benefits from coaching. And even experienced superintendents, when they come into a new district, benefit from coaching. So we take that very seriously, and that has in fact, that has been one of the key factors we find for our very high longevity rate. That so many of our candidates have been successful and remained for 5, 7, 10 or more years because of that early coaching that takes place. Next one. So here's the timeline that we've developed. I hope we can see it all. Roger, okay. Now, one of the things you may wonder is this a timeline that we will stick to? Well, we will first meet with you to determine that this timeline meets your needs. And if it does, we can guarantee that we don't deviate from it. because we make sure that everything that we promise you will be done on time will be done on time. You want your new superintendent to be able to start by July 1st. We want that person to be appointed in May. We think it's important to give you time and to complete this process so that you can have that person appointed well in advance and have some time to do some transition. So you can see those dates, which we take very, very seriously, which will allow us to conduct all the pre-recruitment meetings and gather the survey data in time to meet with you again. 5 full weeks of recruitment, sufficient time for us to select the candidates with you and determine the interview, conduct the interviews, and then do all the steps leading up to the appointment. Roger, next one. And Roger, you're going to take over now.
Yep. So one of the important things to know is that we provide, as part of our commitment, absolute communication with the board. We involve the board in every phase and key decision involved here. It's your search, it's not ours. We bring multiple candidates to you, and we provide all the materials that the candidates provide to us. We make access to you, so nothing is held back. We do not have a stable of candidates that we continually propose to districts, and I have had some experience with that with other firms, and so I think that's actually a very important point to drive home. We make sure that every candidate that you interview meets the criteria that you have determined. And as I said before, we provide all the materials to you. We have an all-inclusive fee. There are no extra add-on charges for this entire process. All of the costs are included. There's nothing additional that's added. It includes the compensation study, the mentoring, the board workshops, the employment contract assistance, should you require that. All of the consultant services are all included. Our guarantees, you're involved in every decision. It's your search in that sense. Full disclosure of all applicants. You determine the interviews and you make the final choice. And the selection will not be recruited once you hire them. If you rehire them, we will not go back to that superintendent and try to place them in another district later. If we are not successful in bringing you a candidate that you desire, we will not charge for an additional search. And if the superintendent does not meet your needs within the 2 years, we will do the additional search with no charge at all. The magnitude of what you do is important, and choosing a superintendent is probably the most important thing a board does. And so we understand that magnitude and would look forward to assisting you in this project.
Let me add just a couple of other points. We have a national network and we do reach out nationally, but our experience has been that the education system in California is different from many other states, very, very different. So we have found that the candidates that we're most likely to look for and recommend to you are candidates that do have experience in California. It's very unlikely that we would consider somebody with only experience outside of California as most suited to be a superintendent here. And there are just so many things that are very unique to California. So we do tend to specialize in our search for people in California as well, all parts of California. We've done many searches in the North, in the Bay Area, many searches in the South and all around the state. So that's become very, very important to us. And
Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Galizzi, thank you so much. Are you, oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Did I cut you off? I'm sorry, you were finishing one sentence.
No.
Okay, thank you very much for that fine presentation. Stick around, we have some questions for you, I believe, board members. Hands up, Director De La Cruz, and then Director McCormick.
So we're a pretty special community, kind of climate change, ground zero, wildfires, and disasters before COVID. I'd love to know a little bit about your process, about how you really get to know our community, and some of the things that do make this particular job special in terms of reaching out and bringing people to it. And I'd love in particular to hear about your community engagement methodologies with regards to hearing from people who aren't traditionally considered or respected as stakeholders and how you bring them into the process.
Well, thank you, because that's obviously one of the most important parts of the process, the engagement of as many stakeholders as we possibly can. And of course, COVID has changed the methodology a bit, so that you'll find that we're going to be doing this primarily by Zoom, whereas it's unfortunate because I love getting to meet people in person and having focus groups where we connect directly to people in person. But those days will come back soon. But we begin by meeting with you to determine which groups and individuals you think are important for us to meet with. Many of them will be very similar to what we hear from in other districts, but in some cases, there'll be specific groups that you identify that may not exist anywhere else. But you'll also tell us about some individuals that may not be part of a group that we should talk to. And we will reach out to them and conduct the same process, asking them the same 3 questions about strengths, challenges, and the preferred characteristics that we ask everybody else. We also will hold a minimum of 2 community-wide forums because we find that people need more than one option to do that. And we get a tremendous number of responses through our surveys, which we always put out in both English and Spanish and in other languages as needed. But English and Spanish is always the way we put the surveys out. And we may typically receive hundreds of responses on surveys as well. So in a district like yours, I predict we will be talking to hundreds of members of your community. And as the process goes on, you might think of some other people that you didn't initially identify and say, by the way, we'd like you to speak to this person. Or somebody else that we speak to might suggest someone else to talk to. So we continue our outreach based on some of that information.
Thank you.
Director McCormick.
Thank you for your presentation. I had a question. Could you tell me a little bit more about your 2-year superintendent mentoring coaching program or process?
Well, some of what we will do, we will work with the board to get some input from you in terms of whether there are specific things you would like us to work with. But our partners, and I will speak for both Linda and Roger can speak for himself on this, have had extensive experience in coaching superintendents. And so we know what many of the challenges are when somebody is new in a job, even if it's not their first time as a superintendent. And we know some of the things that they're going to be coming up with. And we help them to formulate their management perspective, philosophy, and their goals. But a great deal of the coaching will emerge from some of the questions that come up from the candidates as they're dealing with issues. There's one person I've been coaching now for the past 1.5 years who is in touch with me constantly because things come up that are unexpected, and we might spend 2 hours at a time. Now that it's during COVID season, it's not in person so much, but either on the phone or in a Zoom meeting, just doing some problem solving. So much of it is determined early on by what the goals of the superintendent will be, but so much of it emerges during those 2 years from some of the issues that come up that the superintendent is dealing with.
Thank you.
Other questions, board? Director Flores.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Oh, by the way, thank you. Very, very thorough presentation. Just a clarifying question here. You mentioned that the selected candidate will not be recruited, within, I think you say 2 to 3 years.
Ever.
Does that? Oh, okay.
If we place somebody in your district, we will never recruit that person for another job.
Okay. My question was does that apply to other, firms? But, I think you just answered that question for me. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, we don't think it's fair to you to help you find the right superintendent and then a couple of years later try to recruit that superintendent to go to another district. We just think that's unprofessional.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, is there a clause in their contract saying that other firms cannot do that as well?
No, I don't, the contract, of course, would be up to what you would want to put in there, and I've never seen that clause in there. But we tell them upfront, if we're doing a search, we will not consider them as a candidate in another district.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, I see no other hands up. Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Galizzi, thank you so much for that presentation. I appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Well, it's a
Thank you.
pleasure
Welcome.
meeting all
Thank
of
you.
you, and we
Yes.
Thank you.
honored to work with you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Night.
We are going to take a short break and we are going to do an interpreter switch. So we're also doing a bio break. Let's just say 5 minutes. Okay, folks? See you back, let's just say at 8:07. This is where we call like ollie ollie oxen free, right? Okay, thank you, everyone. So prompt. We have our next presenters, I believe. And this is Adina. I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me.
This is Leadership Associates.
Yes, hi. Sue Richards.
Hello.
Okay, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you
for
very
being
much.
here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce Rich Fisher, who will be my partner in this search if we're fortunate enough to get it. And we have, and we'll see in our little slideshow, a number of backup assistants that help us with all of this, as well as 12 other partners that help us, support us in our search. But let me first of all, thank you for the opportunity to present to the board. We know, being this late in the program, you've heard a lot of repetitive stuff. We're aware of that. Kind of goes with the territory, but I wanted to first of all congratulate you on some of the things that you've done in the last few years. The work you're doing with the Cesar Chavez Language Academy to make sure that you really emphasize world languages, as you always have. The fact that you respect the culture of everyone in your district is major. I think, and everybody in that area gets that. Compliment you on your exchange programs. Even the fact that you've taken the next step with vaping by putting on your website the connection between vaping and COVID-19. I took a look at your Despierta Los Angeles or that commercial about that connection, which is really powerful for kids these days. And then obviously the major, a little story. I drove up there to work with Santa Rosa and got off the freeway, rented my car off the freeway, out of the airport, rented my car, driving down as I usually did to Santa Rosa, and I saw the results of the fires. And I had to skid because I almost hit the car in front of me. I couldn't believe it. That road right out of the airport, kaboom, everything burned down. So God bless you. I know a couple of the board members from that prior board lost their homes, which is just, it's just terrible. So let me start with our PowerPoint, if you'll let us begin with that. And I think Penny is on to start that up.
See your name.
I'm here, but I have no video. I don't know if that's from your end. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can screen share. Let me just see if I can screen share and we'll go from there.
Adina, is there anything on our end for Penny or?
Her video shows us turned on my end.
Okay.
Are you screen sharing now?
I am.
Okay. All right.
I think we have a problem here.
Okay, that's okay. So why don't we just, instead of, using the board's time, we'll just kind of not do the PowerPoint, if that's okay.
We can see the PowerPoint. It's just not in presenter mode, but we can actually see.
Okay, if you can see. Oh, very good. All right, hold on just a second.
Well.
Okay, it's going.
Okay,
good.
perfect.
So to begin with, and we were so fortunate to work with you with the last superintendent search and your community. And it was the same two gentlemen you see on the screen, myself, Rich Thome, and Rich Fisher. By having one of us very close and with experience in Northern California, and myself with experience throughout the entire state, we think we will do just a tremendous job of recruitment. Next slide, please. We have support. One of the things that we're very proud of is that we own this company. We're not hired by a larger group, a group of many, and they choose somebody that's local to present. We own this. This is our livelihood. This is our work. This is what we dedicate ourselves to. In our own partnership agreement, this has to be our major work and our only work. And it is. People do side things from time to time, but this is our major work. We have 3 assistants, as you see on the screen. They are always there, and they're very, very instrumental in assisting anyone within your district with any questions that may come up during the search. We love to just brag about them because they're so very, very talented. They were all former assistants to superintendents in their respective school districts. So just an easy conversation from assistant to assistant when there's a question, because you won't be meeting every day, obviously, and getting feedback from them every day, but they will have some questions. So you can see some of the things that we do with regard to helping them with agendas, with the Brown Act protocols, any templates or sample documents, and we're very prompt. Within the day, unless it's the evening, and then the next day, somebody will get back to you, Rich, myself, or one of our assistants. Next slide, please. Good. These are some of the accomplishments. I mentioned some of them, but we love the fact that you are a visionary district. You have a plan. And I want to compliment this board on what you've done. The equity piece with members of the board, the diversity with members on the board, the reach out to your community with an equity lens for us is major. Your work with the English language learners has always been, excellent. We think you're taking it to another level by including the Dual Language Academy, Cesar Chavez, which was Cook Middle School. And then at the other end, I was very impressed with what you, the board, did, and with Diane's assistance, obviously, as the superintendent, with the career and college kind of pathways, if you will, and academies and so forth. Very impressed with that. Always focused on a high quality staff. And again, we have always known that you listen to your constituents, which is absolutely critical to, running a successful school district. You have a lot of kids, 16,000 kids. You have many English language learners. I think are in the neighborhood of 8,000, about half of the school district. Really important that you have reached out to everyone. And again, I mentioned the COVID-19 pandemic response. And again, I love when I was doing my research here to see the background on vaping and COVID, which I don't see in many districts. Okay, we go to the next slide. Good. We're fortunate in leadership. We get about 70% of the searches. That doesn't mean that, you know, we're Nordstrom's or that we're the big company. Doesn't mean that at all. It means we've been very fortunate to really follow up and be dedicated to this business. I have been doing searches, superintendent searches since 2001. Rich has a very high number, especially in Northern California, Bay Area and up north. And I have a lot of those as well. I'm about at 104 searches now. That doesn't mean I'm old. It just means I'm getting old. But, you know, quite a few under my belt. And, you know, I have to be honest with you that I really did love, it sounds like I'm just putting on, but I really did love working with Santa Rosa. You know, you had a strong union at the time when Diane came on board. We had incredibly great candidates she competed with. And, you know, after the final flag was waved, who came in first? Diane Kitamura. And so proud of her for doing that. Just a talented and brilliant lady. I met her as a board member up north in a school district when she was on the board there. I'm sure you've told them all about that, Diane. That's good. She hasn't told you about her prior board experience. That's all right. She was great. She kept that board in line. Here are some of the searches that we've done. We've done closer to 600 than 550 plus. You can see some of the local ones, Millbrae, Novato, San Rafael. I was involved with those three, Los Gatos, Saratoga, Abatoga, Scotts Valley, Moreland, we're doing now, Franklin McKinley, Reed, which we're doing now, San Bruno and Palo Alto. So we've got a lot of familiarity, recent familiarity with the area and what the needs are. Next slide, please. We have network connections, and I don't want to sound like we're bragging, but you know, it takes a lot to be recruited by leadership associates. Number one, you got to be a good superintendent. Number two, you have to have a big network because we pride ourselves on being able to recruit and do background checks based on that network. So you can see some of the organizations which we've been in, and our partners have led about half of these organizations as presidents or executive directors. So what that means is contact and more contact. I've done statewide work basically for Latino students, and I got a nice award for that. You probably saw that in my resume. But I traveled to most districts in California to talk about just what you're doing now, dual immersion, and the ability to stop saying these are English language learners. Yes, they are. But in California, we also have Spanish language learners. So everyone in this state has to learn English, but we don't want to lose some of their culture and some of their background language. So these are the organizations. Next slide, please. We always ask ourselves this because we were all successful superintendents. We're not doing this as a retirement job. Like, hey, what can I do to earn some money after retirement? It isn't like that at all. What we're doing is we're saying, how can we continue to contribute? And we've had several partners, unfortunately, that have passed. And to the day that they were, healthy, they were in leadership associates. And God bless them. But, we're all very dedicated to a purpose, and that is that we want to improve the quality of education for all kids. And it happens through a strong and viable superintendent. It really does. With a quality board as you are. And again, I love to see the diversity and some of the things that you're into now with regard to respecting culture and language. We believe, Penny, that it's the foundation of a democracy. It sounds like violin should be playing or a band or something, but we really do believe that because our kids at risk, our kids of poverty, our kids with special ed needs, our kids of color, they're not going to make it. They're not going to have jobs in Santa Rosa unless we educate them well. And if anyone doesn't believe that that's the foundation of democracy, I don't know what is, because it should be equitable and fair to everyone, everyone that is a United States citizen. So, and those that are immigrants as well. I mean, it should be open for people to take advantage like our ancestors did. So, and we also believe that if you have a strong superintendent and you're a strong board, you're going to pick up strong administrators at all levels. You will not tolerate a lackadaisical performance, someone that has difficulties. You're going to move on that quickly. Next slide, please. So I've mentioned this, but we really value, back slide, please. Can you go back one slide, Penny? Good. We really value integrity, equity, excellence, diversity, inclusion, accountability, but transparency. If you were to hire us, you know, you'll have my cell phone, you'll have Rich's cell phone, you'll have Penny's cell phone. If there's ever a doubt or anything, I don't want to repeat what those other firms said, and I know they probably said this too, but my apologies for being repetitive with the other firms. But literally, we are available. This is what we do. Out of this little office in my home, this is what I do. That's what Rich does as well. So we are available, and always anything that we're doing is transparent. We will give you weekly updates on what's going on. So let's say we do a 3-month search. You're going to end up with a weekly email from Rich or I or Penny every week on where we are with the search. Worst thing possible for me when I was a superintendent was to hire consultants and then you don't hear from them until they give you their final report. And people are saying, hey, what's going on with the new construction? Hey, what's going on with you know, the formation of a charter, whatever it might be. We're gonna be right on that. We're gonna be very communicative with you. Communicative. Pardon that language slip up there. Next slide. We think this is probably one of our key assets, which we believe sets us apart. We train superintendents. We have about 1/3 of the superintendents in California in our leadership development series. Our partners are the instructors with a few other folks that we've picked up. But as you can see on this slide, we're working with 70 counties now, 180 districts. We have a leadership network that's also a different thing, not the leadership series, but it's a network where we facilitate meetings between superintendents so they can share best practices and challenges with each other. And believe me, this year with COVID-19, that's been well attended. We also have an assistant superintendent network, which we have in 5 counties, 40 districts, and then all kinds of other professional development series. Rich and I have done numerous boards, over 100 between us, boards in California, where we come in at your request and we help you with any conflict, with any evaluation of the superintendent, leadership training, Brown Act, any of that. Typically you use an attorney. We have the ability to do that as well, and then let the attorney check and make sure we're saying the right stuff. And then of course, all the leadership training. 360s are if anybody in the district, the superintendent, or you hire us to just take a look from all perspectives, we have a system that creates the kind of a 360 evaluation and feedback to you. Next slide, please. It's your search, it's not our search. And I know you've heard that probably 4 times today, but bear with me. It really is your search. If you tell us, you know, we really want you to focus only on Northern California superintendents or sitting superintendents, or we're open to out-of-state superintendents, it's your search. In our meetings with you, we will ask you, what would you like us to look for? Where do you want us to look? We're primarily California, but we have the contacts throughout the United States, and we get, the one I just completed, we had 16 applications, a very small district. We only had 16. We usually get 25 to 30 with a district your size, but a small district, and we had 4 almost a quarter of them were from out of state. I mentioned our administrative staff, and believe me, we couldn't do this without them. Anybody that says, sticks out the lapel and says, I'm a search consultant, well, you just can't do that. You've got to have that team on board 24/7, in my view, to be there all the time. Personalized, high tech in that, we'll do whatever you need. We do the surveys. I've heard other people say they do the surveys as well. So the surveys are critical. We get a lot of the commuters, right? People that need to drive to work, etc. And again, so as I mentioned, we have a national reach. It's been very effective. In our current searches, we've had several large numbers of out-of-state candidates because of the size of the district. Next slide. That's it. So I just want to tell you that my experience in Santa Rosa has been excellent. I'm hoping that we can, work with you again. You've got a tough decision, obviously, with 4 firms. I want to make sure that that our price, our fee, primarily covers all of our backup because we are a self-owned company, self-owned, not cell phone, but self-owned company. And so we've got to pay everyone and we got to pay everything. So having your own company, any of you that own your own business or, are working in a cell phone business, you know what that means. It means that the owner or the consultant doesn't get a ton of money out of it. But we do this because we really want to do it. And we want to make sure that everybody's taken care of. And I probably have far exceeded my time, and I apologize for that. But, and I didn't let Rich speak. And if you haven't met Rich Fisher, he has the best sense of humor in the state of California, which is always good during a search as well.
That's why.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thom. Mr. Fisher, do you have anything that you'd like to say, just really quick?
No, I want you to know that I asked Rich to do it himself. I've been doing input sessions all day long by Zoom for another school district. We'll be finished up by the time we start yours in that district. But I've just kind of worn out on Zoom, so I thought I'd just sit back and listen to the master speak through this.
The master, right?
But it's a,
all right.
We're a personable firm, very caring group, and if we can possibly make this fun, we will, and it'll be a great team building process for all of you. Everybody that's worked with us have found that to be the case. And by the way, I was one of the many superintendents of Harmony Elementary School District in this county. I know the county very well. We've got a lot of work here. So thank you for having us.
The only other thing I'll mention is that I was born of Mexican parents from San Juan, Chihuahua, and I'm bilingual. So I will handle all of the Spanish speaking people. And I know Ever could check me out on that and a couple of others. Para que todos sepan, nací, después mexicano, salí de Chihuahua, nací en Los Ángeles hablando español y luego inglés. Así que para mí es natural hablar español. I'm sorry for those that didn't understand me. I was telling the bilingual members of the board that born in Los Angeles, but my parents are from Mexico.
Thank you very much, both of you. Have a really great night. Oh, wait, sorry.
You have questions?
Questions? I know, questions. What questions, board members? I'm sorry. Director Medina, who is on mute still.
Damn it, I owe money. Thank you again for the presentation. Just a quick question. I'm curious, in your searches, do you often do searches for non-credentialed superintendents? And if so, how often do they get recommended?
Well, we've done some. The large majority of the superintendents we've placed do have credentials. But we've done a couple, not many, honestly, because most of our candidates have come up with a lot of experience in education and administration in California. But we have had some. We have some in finals from time to time. Typically, if they've got a bachelor's and a master's, they can work to get that credential and then be, certified. But we want the best person, and we don't choose the person, obviously. So if there's a red hot person that just needs a credential, but they're perfect for Santa Rosa City Schools, then you're going to see them. You're going to see them. You can choose if you want to interview them or not. The other things I'll mention, and is that we will guarantee to follow that superintendent for a couple of years and coach. I still do a lot of coaching, and not for money, but follow up to searches in several districts, as Rich does. We do a lot of Zoom coaching. We do that sort of thing. And if in the first year you're not satisfied, not the right fit, and we'll redo it just right away. for nothing, just the same search fee that you already had paid. I think that's a critical piece. We haven't lost many out of the hundreds that we've done, but occasionally there's there could be. I've got one out of 104, and that wasn't a candidate that we recommended at all. I'm not blaming that board, but they really liked her educational background, but no leadership background.
Any other questions, board? Director Flores, and then Director Sheffield.
I do have a question, but I just want to say thank you for your presentation. It resonated with me. I don't know, because I'm Latino, I like your storytelling.
No.
So thank you. My question to you is, you mentioned for a district like ours, you would get between 25 and 30, applications. I didn't hear that we would have access to all of these. Did I miss that?
No, you won't have access to all of them.
Okay, all right, thank you.
The way and I didn't go through the timeline and the process because it is so similar now. We used to always go through that, but a major thing for us is community input, a major thing from us, keeping the board apprised of the candidates. Right after closing, we will open a portal, so you can portal, so you can go in and look at the applications, and you can review them. We will then send you a confidential summary of, let's say, the 6 or 7 that we believe best match what you've told us, and also match what your community said to you, which you again told us. And then you choose from the 25, let's say, who you would like to interview. So it's all yours, and you will have access to that. And we'll have like 6 or 7. We'll say these are the strongest, but these other 3 are barely behind by like 20 feet. And then you can choose from them as well if you would choose to do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Director Sheffield.
Thank you for your presentation. I guess I was kind of hoping Mr. Fisher would tell us a joke, as he has been identified as one of the funniest men in the state. But actually, my question, other presentations this evening, they discussed some of the work that we've done recruiting during the pandemic. And I'm wondering if you could share, if any work that you've done, and maybe even some work regionally, work that you guys have done during the pandemic, that we can actually take a look at.
Yeah, sure. Rich, you want to go first? Not with a joke, please. You're muted, Rich.
You owe me $5.
No, that's the joke. That was hilarious.
Richard,
he's still going.
You're muted.
Yeah, you owe me another $5.
Penny, can you?
You missed the best stuff on my apologize.
That's all right.
Go ahead, talk.
No, Rich, it's up. We wanted you to.
I've completed one search. I'm almost completed the second search of the year. All of it done by Zoom. It's been
challenging, truthfully. The one I'm going to finish next week will be there. I think the week after next, I'm sorry, will be in person. The interviews will be in person. The rest of the search is done by Zoom. And it's a very careful school district, and I trust that they will set up situations that'll be safe for everybody, because it's just so difficult at times to make these kind of decisions when you don't have a face-to-face interaction, as much as we enjoy seeing all of us like this. So that'll be a test to see how well we do on in-person interviews. The rest of it is all by Zoom.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that I've done 3 in-person interviews during the pandemic. One was in Millbrae, which is close to you. Another one was out in the Banning area, but we did it in gymnasiums. Everybody was 10 feet apart. Everybody wore a mask. Everybody had all the hygiene tools right there at their 10-foot apart desk. So it's possible to do that. We would favor that for the final interview if you're up for that, because we believe that, you really need to see that person up front. And we've done quite a few, both Rich and I have done quite a few purely on Zoom. And, those work as well. I just recently did Shoreline up in that area, up in the Bay Area. It's a small district, Bodega Bay, in that whole arena. And just a few up in that area that we've done that were Zoom, and they worked fine. It's just a matter of seeing your candidate, like right now you're seeing Rich and I, but maybe the flavor of our personality didn't come through, or, our emotions or something, I don't know, but.
No, I get it.
What? Yeah.
I get it. I appreciate your honesty on it as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. But we've done quite a bit of work. I do a lot of work with Zoom with the Davis School Board up near Sacramento, and that's gone really well because they've decided not to do in person. Now they're flirting with doing one in March. People are lightening up a little bit with the vaccines and with the masks and with the numbers going down.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. What did I leave out, Rich?
I'm making a lot of money tonight, Lori.
I know. Checks in the mail. We need to wrap this up. We're almost at our limit, but Director De La Cruz had her hand up.
Dr. Sheffield answered my questions, or asked my questions. Thank you.
Probably answered them too.
¿Por qué no dice usted Chihuahua si en realidad eres de Chihuahua?
Órale, ¿cómo sabía? Exactamente.
También mi familia es del norte.
Chihuahua, ¿verdad? Importante saber eso. Es un hecho, pero tan importante.
Sí.
A los chihuahuenses, pues.
Gracias.
Sorry about that with the others that we spoke a little Spanish there, but it was,
He does this.
We weren't showing off, I swear.
No, that's.
Any other board members' hands up? Going. Mr. Thome, Mr. Fisher, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for presenting. Very nice job.
Be well.
President Fong.
It was a pleasure, and we really appreciate you taking the time to interview our firm.
Yes,
President
Dr.
Fong.
Kitamura.
Just a note from the, because it happened to me with Mr. Thome, they do not recruit people that they place into positions.
Never.
Yeah, so I just wanted that to be known, because I am nosy, and so I call about certain people being in certain positions, and he won't talk to me about it because it would be portrayed as recruiting me, which is not what I was calling about. But I just wanted you to know that they have that that principle as well.
Even though we've been tempted, we've really been tempted, but we don't do it.
Okay, so you didn't get recruited. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That would be, kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, if you will. Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity. Hope we're lucky. Take care.
All right, take care. Good night.
Bye.
All right. We are moving on to our last firm, and Adina, would you bring those folks in, please? And that's McPherson and Jacobson.
They are on their way.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Hello, Mr. Hewitt. Yes, we can. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. We have two other consultants with us tonight, Aida Buelna and Bob Ferguson. Are they on?
I see Mr. Ferguson.
There's Aida. I see her as well. Yes, they're with us.
Okay, the floor is yours, and you have a touch over 15 minutes.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you tonight. We do have a slide presentation if your tech person can put it up for us, and we'll start with that.
Adina, are you doing that?
So the screen sharing is enabled, so you can actually share your own presentation and click through it yourself.
All right, let me see if I know how to do that.
We can do it if you need,
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do it, and I'll just say slide.
Okay, so Adina, do you want to pull it up or do you want me to pull it up?
That's fine, I can pull it up. I just need the file to be emailed.
Just pull it from the board agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Bill, while they're doing that, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do our introductions. So first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you about your superintendent search. My name's Bill Hewitt, and I'm a consultant with McPherson and Jacobson. Have been for 7 years now. Conducted 22 searches for them. My past, I was a high school math and physics teacher, and then principal for many years, and then a superintendent for 17 years, primarily in the Central Valley, but also in Berkeley for the last 5 years of my career. Since retirement, I've been doing primarily this, but I also mentor superintendents and work with boards of education on governance issues. Aida, you want to go next?
Okay. I retired after 36 years in education, started off as a bilingual Spanish-speaking teacher, taught math, algebra, and Spanish in Delano. Also K through 9 in Woodland and in West Sacramento. I was an elementary principal, vice principal with junior high. I was a director of state and federal. Worked at Sac City Unified as an administrator for child development. And my last 8 years, I served as superintendent for a small rural community in Yolo County, and have worked with McPherson and Jacobson for going on my 6th year. So I'm in year 5, and have conducted probably 16 searches in those years and assisted in probably 4 others. Bob?
Good evening. Bob? I'm Bob Ferguson. I'm going to try to make this short because I know you guys are getting tired. I retired from Tamalpais High School District as superintendent. I worked at several districts as superintendent, did 3 also interim superintendencies. I live in Napa, and both Bill and I worked for 2 other firms, hedge hunting, I mean this search firms. And we left those firms that come to McPherson and Jacobson. I've been with them since their inception in California. And the first search we did in California was Old Adobe up your neck of the way. I have a lot of friends that live in Santa Rosa. I also worked in Santa Barbara, so I'm very familiar with your unique setup as dual districts with 1 board and 2 different budgets, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, if we can start with the slides, that would be helpful. All right, next slide.
We already did this slide. Next.
Yep, next slide. Okay, to give a few highlights of McPherson and Jacobson, we are a leading national search firm. However, we pretty much have our own network of experienced California consultants. There's 16 of us in California that work together, and we're sort of an entity within the national firm. Most of all of our candidates and all of our work is here local in California. All of us were California educators. We're known for being able to place superintendents who stay in the job for extended periods of time. Over 70% of our placements have been in the job 5 years or more. We work for the board. We are your recruiters, but we will tailor our search to the way that you'd like us to do it. We're also known for a high level of stakeholder engagement, both during the time before the interviews and during the process of interviewing. And we are the firm that is sponsored by CSBA. Next. So we have 5 phases of the superintendent search. And I'm going to go ahead and do the first one, and then we're going to share the stage for the others. So if we can go to the phase 1. Next slide. And these may come in one at a time. Oh, but before we do that, just wanted to mention a few things about your district in doing our research. And of course, we know about your district through many of the fine accomplishments, both you as a board and your superintendent, having won the Ferd Kiesel Memorial Award, have done. Your second language programs are a model for many districts throughout California. Your work with the terrible fires. I had friends and actually family that were burned out of their house, and they talked about how wonderful the school district was through all this. So you have an outstanding school district. We'd be really honored to help you fulfill your mission. Next slide. So in the first phase of our 5-phase program, we will work with you to identify the desirable characteristics and criteria. We are a criteria-driven company, and as we present to you tonight in the short time we have, we really want to highlight the things that are different. This firm is different in its approach and in what it does for a board, and we'd like you to consider those differences. All of the 4 firms have wonderful, successful superintendents and good processes, but the reason, I think Bob mentioned earlier, that both he and I came to this firm because we really believe in having a criteria-driven program that gives the board multiple lenses to look at their candidates. And that results in a better match between the superintendent and the school district. We establish your timelines and the target dates for you. We've noticed that you would like to have this person identified by May. That's a pretty ambitious timeline, but we can do it. But we would like to meet quickly with you to talk about your timeline and about having enough time to have it out there advertised, but also to move quickly so that we get right in the thick of the season. There are a lot of districts that are out there looking for superintendents right now, and we can't waste any time, especially at the front end. And also in phase 1, we'll determine how to advertise your position, what media to use. And that's pretty straightforward and pretty traditional in California, using EdJoin and EdCal as the 2 main venues, but there are other options. Next slide. Okay, Aida, you want to take it from here?
Okay. One of the things that we do, and it was mentioned in the first slide, is we solicit input from various groups. These are your stakeholders, whether they are administrators, teachers, classified staff, your parents, your students, PTA groups, community groups, whether they're the Lions, chief of police, fire department, church groups, those individuals and groups, community groups that you feel you want to hear from. We also prepared the summaries of the various groups that we interview. We ask 4 questions of all groups and individuals. The 4 questions have to do with what's great about your community, what is great about your schools, What are some of the issues that the district is facing? All districts, and I mean, really everyone has issues. It's not something that's quote bad. And then we also ask, what are the characteristics, attributes that the groups would like to see in the superintendent? And then this information is gathered and we provide the board with a stakeholder report that gives you the summaries and also each individual response that we get. We put this information online, both for your district, it would be English and Spanish, and another language if you feel that it's necessary. The 4 questions are on the survey and those responses are also provided to the district. We develop a unique application form, which includes the criteria, and we ask applicants to address the criteria and how they feel they meet that criteria. We develop a 4-page promotional brochure. We advertise the position in those venues that have been selected in phase 1. And we actively recruit applicants that would meet and best serve your district. We keep applicants informed throughout the entire process. So just so that you're aware, I worked in Santa Rosa just this last fall with Pioneer Ovet and assisted them in their search for a superintendent. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, phase 3, evaluation of the candidates. Come back, yeah. Okay, we read and evaluate all the applicant files. We evaluate each applicant based on the criteria that the board established. We conduct a complete reference check. It's not just the individuals that are listed on the candidate's application, but we also ask those applicants if 1 or 2 names for individuals that have worked with this individual. And then it's, once again, we ask them if there's someone else that we can speak to that has worked with this candidate. We also have our consultants throughout California, and we'll speak to them. We speak to county superintendents, and we look at workplaces that the individuals have worked at. Not necessarily that they indicated that we could call these references, but we ask those school districts and find out, you know, how they were seen in those districts. We reviewed the top candidates with the board, and the top candidates are those that best meet the criteria that's been established. We will bring all the candidates to the board, and we'll let you know which were the top and why some of the others were not brought forth. We help determine which candidates the board will interview, but in reality, you select those individuals you'd like to see interviewed. One of the things that we bring forward that makes us unique is that we have those in the list that we bring forward create a video, and they address 3 questions. It's timed. They have 3 minutes to answer the 3 questions. And we present those videos to the board along with the application, resumes, and reference letters. In phase 3, we also develop a set of interview questions, and we notify all applicants that have not been selected. Throughout this process, we keep the board informed, letting you know where we are and what has been happening throughout the different phases. And we do this not only by speaking to you, but also in board meetings. We do believe in transparency, and we want the community to know where we are with the process.
Let's go to the next slide.
Let me jump in. This is Bob Ferguson, and do phase 4 and 5, and I want to try and highlight on some of the differences. As you can see, most of the firms do the same process to some extent. We do some things a little bit differently. Obviously, we develop the interview questions with you. We also want interview questions that are not easily answered. We want to really push and test the candidate's ability to answer in a tough situation, really tough questions that we'll develop with you. We work with you to talk about the interview. What type of interview do you want? Do you want simply a straight interview? Do you want the candidates to also do something like a in-basket type process, or a review of the budget type process with a written summary, or a writing sample? Sometimes boards want as many inputs as possible so they can help with the decision making. We also talk about scheduling the interviews and how we do that. Again, it's going to be up to you. We try and do some things that boards really see as being different. For instance, as an example, in probably half the districts we've done, we do a thing outside of the interview process where we ask 2 board members to meet with a candidate for breakfast, 2 other board members meet with a candidate for breakfast, do the same thing at lunch with 2 different candidates, do a coffee with 2 board members. So by the time, if you interview in the afternoon, you've had a chance for an hour for each board member to have sort of a social interaction with a candidate prior to the actual interview. This does really 2 or 3 things. It really relaxes the interview process so that it's much more honest and open and not so tense. It gives you a chance to know that person other than simply the questions we're going to ask. And it makes for, we think, a much more deeper and thorough process. The final line of this decision for us is that we're going to bring you not 1 or 2 strong candidates. We're going to bring you a lot of candidates that are strong. And we really want you to struggle with that issue. So really, when we did example Elk Grove, there's 7 board members, had 5 finalists, and each board member had 5 of the board members had a different first place candidate. That made for a long discussion. Stakeholder involvement is really critical. Again, it's up to you how much you want to do with stakeholders. Do you want, obviously, as you heard Aida say, we're going to be talking a lot, listening a lot to people in the community, be it by in-person or Zoom or online surveys. We want to talk to you. Do you want a stakeholder interview? Do you want that process? How much involvement do you want in terms of transparency for the community? We work with you to develop as much as possible in terms of the involvement of stakeholders for input to you. We really are very transparent in that, and we don't want to hold anything back from the community. We want the community and the staff to realize and feel they have been part of the process. The board makes a decision. We try to bring you multiple different aspects of the decision making so that you can make a better decision. Obviously, we do the background checks and vetting. When the board selects their final choice for a candidate, we sit down with the board and the new superintendent and work through the first year goals and objectives. So the first year is the most critical year. We want to make sure the board knows how you are going to evaluate and hold the superintendent accountable for his or her goals. We also want the superintendent to know how he or she is being evaluated. And we probably pick anywhere from 3 to 5 goals that help you really make it a success for the first year. With mentorships, we usually feel that the superintendent and the board can have a chance to pick their own mentor. We don't want to simply give you a list of people and say, here's who you choose from. We think it's important that the superintendent has his or her mentor that he or she feels comfortable with and that the board feels comfortable with. That's quick, but I want to make sure we try and keep on your time because you've been there for a long time.
Let's do the next slide about what happens afterwards. Bob talked about coming back and helping set the goals and for a successful first 6 months to a year. We also, on this slide, Bob mentioned that we will design the process that you desire. If it's a confidential board only interview, we've done many of those. We're known for doing a board interview with stakeholder involvement and a social interaction. We're, I think, the only company that does all of that. And most boards really appreciate being able to see the candidate socially before they interview them. And also, if you want a completely open process, some districts have had completely open processes, although in California, that's fairly rare. Next slide. Bob mentioned already that we will help you establish the performance objectives for the superintendent's first 6 months to a year. We also provide a 2-year guarantee that if this placement doesn't work out for whatever reason, that we will come back and do the next search for expenses only. Okay, a couple of other things that we provide. Next slide. We can help the board in building the job description for the superintendent if you don't already have one that works for you. We can also help you in developing an effective contract to include comparative salary studies from surrounding like-size school districts. We provide you in negotiations help with the finalists. Usually your attorney takes the front seat in that, but sometimes we've been beneficial in addition to your attorney. And we will provide an on-site visit to the finalist's home if you feel that that is something you want in your process. Next slide. I think we've mentioned on timeline, usually this takes 2 to 3 months from the time we sign a contract and until we complete the search. We have that amount of time, but really we've got to stay very much on task to stay in the thick of the search schedule, search calendar from competing districts. Okay, so next. And so finally, I want to say a couple of closing comments about McPherson and Jacobson. We've really focused a lot on our process and on what we bring to you. We work very hard for you. I think that I know that we really spend a lot of time with you and your stakeholders. We provide a full and comprehensive report of how your stakeholders see your district and how they see the issues. We think that's real important to be transparent about the issues that are out there, because the next superintendent needs to tackle those and has to match up with them. All of this brings to you about 5 different lenses to look at candidates through your stakeholders, through your social component. Oftentimes we have them do a performance for you, whether it is solving a problem on their feet. Sometimes we have them prepare a board agenda item and present it to you. That's always a lot of fun. And we're really known for involvement of stakeholders. Your stakeholders are so important in this. I like to say that the reason CSBA chose this firm is because boards were complaining that things were done behind closed doors and they were getting criticism from their stakeholders. And they chose McPherson and Jacobson because we really believe in involving stakeholders throughout the whole process. They don't make the decisions, but it's very helpful for you in a confidential way for stakeholders to give you their impressions, both the strengths and the concerns of each candidate, so that they have a part in the process in advising and giving you information. They don't prioritize, they don't tell you who to hire, but they do give you very valuable information about who they see and what they see in each candidate. Okay, I think that's it, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Yep. All right, McPherson and Jacobson. We're very, very thankful we had this opportunity to spend some time with you, and we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Appreciation. Thank you for that presentation. And board members, we have hands up, and I see Director De La Cruz's hand up first.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I'm curious how you define stakeholders in this process.
It's broadly defined. Stakeholders are your families, your community leaders, both identified and sometimes not readily identified. It's your students. It's certainly your employee group. So I think Bob and I can relate to when we did Elk Grove, which is a large district. We spent, I think, the total of about 8 days there with numerous meetings of folks. We don't have a limit to this.
39 separate meetings.
39 separate meetings we held in Elk Grove to get everybody together. And in the end, we present a report to you that many districts use for their strategic planning, if that's the next phase of what they're doing, because it's a very good environmental scan. And it's work I just love. I love getting into the district and listening to people and working and having their voice heard. To follow that up, of course, when we do the stakeholder panel for interviews, that's what we normally do. And we can do more than one panel, but if we have one panel, we usually have about 15 people on that panel. And that's usually balanced between half staff and half families and community. And the board helps us decide who is going to be on that panel.
I think to add to that, because I am Spanish speaking, I'm able to speak to the ELAC, DLAC group. We also host a Spanish community meeting in the evening. We try to make it at 7. 7:30 so that the Hispanic community can be involved, because we know, they're hardworking, and many of them, both parents are out of the home working. So we try to host those meetings 7 p.m. And it's a different date than the English community meeting, so that everyone has an opportunity to participate.
I want to mention we've been we're very well connected firm to all of the superintendent associations. Bob and I have been involved with the Northern California Superintendents Association for, I don't know, Bob, 25 years.
Long time.
Yeah, and both of us have been officers in that group and still are active. But we're because of our connections throughout California and all of our associates, all 16 of our associates, we draw a lot of candidates. I would anticipate for your opening that we will probably have anywhere, I doubt we have as few as 30. I think we'll probably have 50 or 60 candidates. I also want to emphasize to you that we've been very successful in placing candidates of color into positions and women. More than half of our placements are candidates of color in the last 3 years. So
I'd like to add one more thing, and I think it's important. Probably in over half the searches we've done, the final choice for superintendent by the board was somebody that was not in the original group of candidates. It's somebody that we recruited at the very end to come in and be a candidate, because we listen to what the needs are of the district, the culture of the district, the needs of the board, the culture of the board, and try to find somebody out there who might be a great match. That person may not know he or she even wants to interview. And we spend a lot of time, and sometimes a little forcefully, trying to recruit that person to be part of the candidate pool, because we think that person probably would be an excellent choice for the board to review.
I think it's important for boards to consider that, to have recruiters that really are connected, know who's out there, and know who would be a good match. A lot of times superintendent candidates, don't think of every opportunity that's out there. I can think of several where I've gone to somebody and said, why don't you think about this job? I think you're going to be a really good match for them. I know what they need. And Bob's right. It's usually during the last 2 to 3 weeks of an opening, because that's when we start to know who's interested and who hasn't responded to us. But I think that's a very important thing for a board. No matter what firm you hire, you want to have somebody who's very connected and very involved with superintendents and assistant superintendents.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
And
much.
We're going to move to questions from the board. Other questions, actually? That was it. All right.
It's getting late.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with your presentation.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, board. Time for discussion. This is our time for discussion as we are weighing the pros and cons of each group, the assets.
Can I ask a question, President Fong? Do you want us to take a minute to tally and collect the scores and then have discussion?
I think it could go either way, but if anybody has anything to say right off the bat.
Well, a question on that process. I don't think there was the exact same number of questions for each. So in order for them to make sense, are we doing something special with the questions in terms of the process?
I'm going to suggest this. They don't really match up with what we did. So if you do the top overall scoring and just in your internal process, which firm in your process would be your first choice? Which firm was your second choice?
You want us to rank them 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 being the first and 4 being the lowest? That's what you want?
And give that to Dina, I think. question. Go ahead. Director De La Cruz.
Sure. I wondered if you could just, President Fong, give us a short kind of recitation of the process that you used to get to these four, whether it was an RFP or an RFQ or something informal, and then some statement as to why these four.
So I'll tell you what, when we heard that Dr. Kitamura was going to retire, my stomach was flipping and was in knots. And I knew that it was falling to me to get the search process started. But of course I had the board and certainly I had the executive team to work with. So I did some preliminary work, and that preliminary work was talking to every single person who's had experience with this that I could possibly talk with. And that included other board presidents from other districts who've been through this process recently. It included talking with Dr. Harrington. It included talking with the Region 3 Director of CSBA.
I gave you a list of firms from.
And Diane also gave me a list of firms, some of which you see here. And then I just started calling up the board presidents that I had met. So by dint of my work, I think in the last 2 years, I've gotten to know some of these board presidents. So I just reached out. Who did you use? What did you think? Who did you use? What did you think? Who did you use last time? How did that go for you? And they each were generous in sharing what they thought. They each thought that their firm was great. And these firms came from them. So they also, these are the four firms that came to the forefront. These are the ones that floated to the top.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I feel like that gives me a really good foundation for understanding kind of the process. I wondered if you could talk about if you used any specific kind of rubric in making the decision, right? So like, is there a way that we can kind of carry over into our decision-making process some of the things that you found important? So just a little bit more about the kind of criteria and how we're thinking through.
So I wanted to make sure that the firms were large enough to handle a district of our size. Large enough meaning that they had a broad enough reach. And as you can tell, they did. I wanted to make sure that they had consultants and that were well connected. So a big thing for me is that, are their consultants well connected? And by well connected, I mean, are they active in those levels of school administration that they know people who know people, or they know people who are right now in this business? That could be our potential candidate, right? We don't want people that are not close to the scene anymore. We don't want people who were close to the scene 20 years ago or 15 years ago or 10 years ago and no longer. And so I wanted active people. I also specified, and it's partly in the RFP, the criteria that I was asking for that the executive board and I worked on together, that they appreciated our diversity, that they were looking for BIPOC women, and that they were responsive to what we were doing. We wanted to know who they had recently placed, so we could get a sense of their track record. So for me, when I'm looking for a group, and I don't know if I should tell you what I'm thinking right now. I don't know, or we vote first, I'm not sure. They all have the same timelines, pretty much all the same timelines. They all reach out to stakeholders the same way, or the way that we want them to reach out to stakeholders. And I'm sure they're going to have ways that we're not even thinking of. But finally, for me, is how well they are connected and networked and understand the job of a superintendent today, and matching those folks with our district. And that's a lot of savvy. That's just a lot of savvy, and that's what we're looking for. Process is one thing. There's practically a template, but that savviness, that connectedness, that knowledge of us, finding out more about us, coming in knowing about us, and what they say about the importance of diversity and casting that net and having the ability to know where to cast that net and the connections to get those folks to us. That's where a firm will distinguish itself for us.
Can I jump in really quick? I know Director Manieri put her hand up, but just real quick on this, I need to just give some kudos to President Fong for the amount of work and research she did in a really short amount of time. And so she did a significant amount of research embedding herself. And then we had 2 or 3 meetings as an executive board where the 3 of us, really responded and asked, deeper questions and stuff based on the information that she had collected and had a lot of time. So I just want to give kudos to her and let you know that we actually spent a lot of time on it, and she spent a huge amount of time on it. And really connecting it to our mission, our MVP, our mission, vision, and priorities. So
Yeah,
that was
no,
a big part of it too.
Thank you for that. I think it's really important. I think just also to let folks know, like the RFP was directed to a set of, like there was kind of like an invitation. And so I think it's just good to get some sense on like, how did you come up with that invitation list? Because I think that, I always appreciate your thoughtfulness, President Fong, and to the executive board, just, the ways in which you stay so true to the MVP. And so just hearing a little bit about that process was really helpful as we kind of make this final decision. Thank you.
And just so everybody knows that the RFP is attached to this agenda item. So anyone listening in for the public and wants to see the RFP that went out to these firms, it's on there. So if you want to look at it, it's there.
President Fong, I listened to and I looked at the RFP, and rather than question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I added those priorities or those RFP criteria to your scoring document. The copy of possible, if you look at that and see if that might help you. But I put in there large enough to handle the search, connected to current candidate pool, diversity, BIPOC, gender, recently placed superintendents, no SRCS matching to candidates. That's kind of just what I heard. And so if that helps in terms of rather than scoring a question, scoring those criteria.
Oh, you just changed it just now?
I just changed it just now. It's the original, there you go. I see you popping in. The original one that I sent to you.
If it helps folks to do that, that's fine. I probably won't do that because I think I've already got my 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, that's because you developed the criteria, so you got it in your heart and head.
So Director Medina has his hand up.
I think Stephanie had it first.
And so that's okay. That's okay, because I'm just going to call on you. Go. And then Stephanie's after that.
Well, you know what? I just kind of want to get into my initial reactions. The HYA group kind of stood out to me. They set the kind of tone for me, and just ongoing. I think Leadership Associates and McPherson were kind of like tied in for second for me. The initial energy of the HYA group kind of set an energy tone, and as I went on, the other ones kind of started off slow, but they picked up in terms of like the information they provided, the experience they provided. So I'm kind of, those 3, I'm kind of like really close on all of them, and I could kind of be okay with any of those 3. But HYA just, I don't know why it stood up at the top for me. So that's just kind of what I want to start off the discussion with.
I have a question. Oh, sorry. Director Manieri.
Thank you. I wanted to say a couple of things. I wanted to thank you, President Fong for how simple the RFP was. I actually used that as my own kind of rubric when I was reading through the different proposals and seeing what was attached and what wasn't, what was missing. So I just want to say thank you. That was incredibly helpful in reviewing these ahead of time. I think I also have my 1, 2, 3, 4, so I'll input that into the document in a second. And just going off of what Director Medina said and starting this conversation, I think that what's really important to me, or what I would like to see out of consultants, are folks who really understand the uniqueness of our district and what this board is trying to do and our mission and vision. But really most importantly, just how big this responsibility and role is for our district. Diane's gone through how many fires and now a pandemic, and you know, it's been a really difficult task. And so what's important to me is, as a group of folks who know our district really well, who can speak to our successes and what's great about our district and our students and our staff, and one that has a lot of relationships with potential candidates. I think that's what's most important to me. And I definitely saw that stand out in the presentations, some presentations more than others. So I will leave it there.
Who had their hand? Okay, Director Flores and Director McCormick.
So I also have my 1, 2, 3, 4 ready, and I just want to say thank you again, Dr. Fong, for spending all this time, and it was a pleasure working on the executive committee.
I'm a doctor, just like Dr. Sheffield. Yeah.
Did I say doctor? Oh my God. President Fong, jeez. Anyhow, thank you. One of the things that I noticed is that we selected these because they stood out among a large number of firms. And I just want to say that all of these firms have what we were looking for. But I'm going to echo what Director Manier mentioned, that some stood out more than others, right? And I had a preconceived notion in a couple of these, and they were able to change my preconceived notions as to what they did. And I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this. I won't tell you my 1, 2, 3, 4 is yet, but I just want to say that I appreciate this whole process. I think I've grown personally, and I've learned quite a bit from these firms as to what they can bring to for the next superintendent of the school district. Are we allowed to say our 1, 2, 3, 4s already, or no?
Might as well. It's you're writing it on the paper. I haven't seen yours.
I don't know if you've
right.
taken a look at the sheet ever, but we've started entering them in. It's
Oh, you did? Oh, I made a copy of mine and I did it secretly.
I did too, and I just transferred it.
Okay, I'll do that right now. All right, thanks.
So what I wanted to say is, I just think to streamline this and to focus our discussion, I think we should all enter our 1, 2, 3, 4, remembering 1 is high, 4 is low. So 1 is your top choice. And then I think that will focus our discussion. And there might be a general kind of obvious breaks, and there might be some closeness, and then we can focus where we want to discuss it. So I just think they should all go in, and then maybe we can somehow share this on the screen. So the public can see our scores, and then we could talk it out from there.
Good idea. So we're waiting for 2 more board members. We're doing the top overall scoring chart.
Sorry, so each choice, you have to put a 1, 2, 3, or 4. You can't do like.
No, just go to the very top score sheet, Director De La Cruz, and you're going to put a 1 in your top choice, then 2, 3, 4.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, you're on
Real
the chart
easy.
that says overall scoring, right?
The top.
I have to appreciate all the groups all the people who presented tonight. I have to appreciate them. They all did a fine job and they all have great experience. Jill, did you put in 4?
Yeah.
One box is missing. There you go. Oh, don't know what happened. Okay, it's pretty clear. I'm just going to read them out loud. The scoring again was 1 was the top choice, 4 was your last choice. And when we add them all up across with 7 people, Leadership Associates came up with 8 points. So they were number 1 for 6 out of the 7 board members. There you go. HYA came in second. They were number 1 for one board member, and you can see the rest. Pretty clear. Director McCormick.
So I think that what would be great to just kind of move forward on this before making a motion. I think that if someone is not comfortable with Leadership Associates, this is the time to say that. And so if not, then I'll make a motion. Because we have a pretty clear cut.
Okay, I don't.
So I think it's pretty clear that what I mentioned before, you know, they were able to change my preconceived notion. And I just want to say thank you to the presenters, because I think the executive board knew how I felt about a couple of these firms. So so that's all I'm going to say. And, you know, they were obviously my top choice.
So I'll make a motion then that we select Leadership Associates for our superintendent search firm that we're going to go with.
And I'd second.
Okay, so that was motion by Jill McCormick and seconded by Alegria de la Cruz. Any other discussion, board? Adina, may we have that vote, please?
Director Lopez.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Manieri.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
Director Flores.
Aye.
Director Medina.
Aye, Chihuahua.
No, it's Chihuahua.
Chihuahua.
Si es de Chihuahua, es Chihuahua, no Chihuahua.
President Fong.
I thought we got lost there for a second. And I was actually going to say something to Director Medina about his Chihuahua, right? Chihuahua. Okay, aye, thank you. So again, thank you, board. Thank you to all the people who presented tonight. Really appreciate your efforts and your interest and your energies on behalf of the Santa Rosa City School Board of Education. And I will contact Leadership Associates very shortly and put us on the path for this task. Oh, it's just so hard to have to do this task. I mean, I know we can do this task. We're going to be doing it together with a lot of other people, but of course.
That was the easy part.
And I will say that they actually they came in at the lowest price, and Rich Thome did tell me that he was giving this price from the last time. This is the price like 5 years ago. So I guess inflation has not hit their company.
President Fong.
Okay.
President Fong.
Yes.
I would like to know from Director Lopez what his top firm was. I sent him a spreadsheet, but I don't know if I got it back from him, but I sent him a spreadsheet too. So Director Lopez, could you tell me what your, what would you like to share? Your top firm? And you don't have to if you don't want to.
I'd be more than happy. Let me make sure I got the names right. So I was personally stuck, similar to Director Medina, I was between HYA and Leadership Association. They both did a great job. And I think either of them would do an amazing job to fill out this position. So I'm comfortable with leadership.
Okay, good. And you learn from this process because one day in some years to come, you will be sitting in this chair. So just, yeah.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We know that to be true. Okay.
Thank you, Omar.
Well, folks, it is 9:31 and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the rest of my night on a board night. So
Get some rest.
all right, so that is it. We are going to be adjourned. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Have a good night.
All right, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.